Let's go live. We are live. What's up? How you guys doing? We have some good stuff here. We have in the background Hex or Hex curricula. Actually, is more accurate. And we're going to be talking Pulse Hex and Ethereum Hex and understanding how that can actually create parity when you consider wrapped p-hacks and wrapped e-hacks. We're also going to talk about maybe the ratios in that 26-hour window before things go live and how that might translate afterwards, or what opportunities there might be post everything going out. So with that being said, let me bring in the man, the myth, and the legend himself, Orca. What's good, bro? How you doing?
Yeah, man, making me feel real important. I love that intro.
Let me say hi to anybody in the chat.
Of course.
Crypto Profeta, what's good, man? Appreciate you stopping by. I was telling my girlfriend about your story the other day, and Monica was in here, and somebody else was in here as well. Sup every day. How you doing? They say hi to Orca. You're very popular, so I'm sure we'll get a lot of
really nice hexagons out there, man. It's an unparalleled community. I was around with Bitcoiners, and we didn't really have like a tightness about us. It was a little more skeptical individualism back then, but Hex is nothing like that movement. It's a huge community.
Did you see people like, by the way, anybody who is here, take a second, press the like button, share this on Twitter. You press the share button, then the tweet button, and just share it over. You can tag Hex Orca and tag myself, and we will obviously reshare that as well. What was it like in those communities? Because today, there's at least in my opinion, I think there's a different recognition that like sharing value it doesn't hurt you, where that wasn't always the case.
Yeah, so I think my experience was a little different because I had lost my Bitcoin for like years. So when I wasn't actively looking at Bitcoin information, nobody in my social circle was into Bitcoin and stuff like that. So it wasn't even a part of my life. I didn't have friends I could talk to about it. I didn't like tweet about it. There were some forums, and on those forums you would get some really, really good information, but then you would also get a lot of infighting. And some of it just came because I blame the fact that we didn't have a leader. Like, we have Satoshi Nakamoto, but we didn't have any coherent direction. So it was just whatever was coming out in proposals, whatever the developments were proposing. But as we've seen, like, that stuff has changed so much. The roadmap for Bitcoin has changed, and the things that I was most excited about got scrapped. And there just wasn't ever a feeling of like, we're all in this together. It was a little bit of like us against the world, but it didn't ever feel like, hey man, I want to help you to overcome this. It was just like, well, I hope you have your sats. And that's as deep as the relationship went.
I think that what you highlighted there with like how the leader or the person with the like voice is Richard Hart, and how important it is, because if you build a business, because crypto's a business in my point of view personally, and if you build a business and you're a dick, or you are in it for yourself, or you have certain stereotypes about men or women or sex or how to do business, those are ingrained in your business because it's literally the vision up here that you manipulate into the world around you. And when you have somebody that seems to come across as like trying to improve oneself and trying to help other people and look on the bigger scale to help society as a whole, that ends up coming out in the community. All right. And because you're talking about like Bitcoin, right? That wasn't there, and you draw those like contrasts between those.
And you can see them trying now, but even now, you have different camps of Bitcoin maxis. You have the I don't care about price weirdos, and then you have the it doesn't matter because it's inevitable. But you don't have any. Here's where we're at. Here's obviously where we're going. There's a lot of just hopium that I feel is being circulated around. And we were just chatting in the green room, right? The community that we have in Crypto in the Morning and doing the fitness challenge inspired me last night to make a healthier decision at the grocery store. I wanted to cave, I wanted to go for the carbs, but I had that leadership of the community helping me out, holding me accountable, and I had good information. I know better because I know about the nutrients. I know about the exercise. So I made the right decision. I went and I got healthier food, and we both went for walks today. So having that kind of camaraderie matters. I mean, it can really help change behaviors.
That's awesome. Like you're actually highlighting that because literally it's coming up right
Yeah,
here.
man.
Right? Like in Sam, 2 turkey patties and 1 beef patty, change my perspective. We don't really, in my opinion, we don't really tremendously need carbs for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
You can use them, they're
because
fun.
Garlic bread's tasty.
Right? But like if you're like, oh, my health is important, or like my
Right.
longevity is important, right? Blood sugar levels, or the, I don't want to carry around maybe say extra weight or body fat, like all those things. So good. I'm glad that was helpful. Your name coming up. It says, what does this say about your mic? Orca, your mic sounds awesome.
Good, man, because I've had some mic difficulties in the past, even like during live streams that I was doing just on my own YouTube channel. Put people through like an hour of wrecked mics without having any idea. It was brutal.
The beard is dope. I've thought about doing the beard, but I would shave down the sides a little bit.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I just said I'm not shaving anything. Like my hair grows in like 1 inch every 4 years, so I just buzz that like once a week. But the beard, I can't wait to get rid of this shit. Can we get to May yet?
Can you? So what? This is a 100% selfish question that has nothing to do with crypto, but
fine.
Related to the hair stuff, right? What's up, Ross? So I was like, hey, I'm going to solve the hair loss thing for people, and then I'm going to create a product and hire a doctor to sell that shit, right? Because some of it's like in the research area, like some of the peptides or SARMs or other things that I deal with, right? It's legal, but it's in like that gray area.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll just get a doctor, then that way you can promote it and I don't have to be like involved in it. But then just recently I'm like, wait a second, crypto is far more fun than solving like this fucking hair loss issue for other people. I think I'm just going to shave my head.
I don't know, though. I see Richard's fading just a little bit, so you might have a client if you knock that product up.
What was that like when you first went through and shaved your head? Because I'm very just because then I don't have to.
You'll look so good, man. You'll love it. It's a better look. It's a better look. People can talk shit, but they're just jealous because they don't have the testosterone to pull it off. But that's like my dad was bald like my whole life. And looking back at pictures of him, he had like the toilet bowl hair where it nothing up here, so like brutal. Like I knew I was in for the worst of it. I didn't know I was gonna be a grizzly bear, man. Like if I take off my shirt, I'm wearing a sweater every night. So it's unbelievable. But shaving your head feels really good actually. And the secret tip that I learned from another fellow bald man who decided to do it before I jumped in the bandwagon said use a woman's razor. And I thought he was messing with me. I was like, oh, okay, whatever, man. I'm going to be buying some pink razor looking like a dork. It's the best. It's the best shave I've ever gotten in my life. It's so smooth. I never nick myself. It's very moisturized. It's the best advice I've ever been given.
That is interesting. One of the things that I was listening to this porn star. There's this like ranch, I think in Nevada, where it's like legal. It's kind of like a legal brothel kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she was on a podcast, and she was talking about how like sometimes she'll do the things that doesn't even have sex and stuff, but then they got into grooming. And she was like, oh, if you're grooming, right, somebody said something about shaving, right, you get irritated. And she's like, well, biggest thing you can do is use your razor once and throw it away, right?
Is it because of the bacteria and stuff that gets in there?
Yeah, and like the edge of the blade looks, if you look under a microscope, looks this way, and then your hair, then you're like, okay, this is steel, your hair. But there's little like fragments, and as it hits your hair, it like bends those, and then it ends up becoming like a blunt edge, and then you're trying to shave your head, and then the blunt edge rips your skin, and you can create like issues that way. So since then, I've actually started to increase the frequency. I've been using razors, and it just like makes a big difference. I was like, oh wow, and it's also way nicer to shave with a fresh blade. You know, every time you like
that
pull out a
first
razor,
shave is like you always feel like, oh yeah, this is what shaving is, and then the second day you're like, oh, you're like pulling your face off. It's like, oh my god.
Elon, I don't know how to say his name, but he says to ask you about FE. I'm not sure what FE is.
Oh, that's flat Earth.
Yeah. Is that flat Earth? Is that flat Earth?
Gotta be. I don't know all the acronyms, but I think that's probably what he's talking about.
Is that like So you see, I saw one argument the other day, just like a video I was scrolling or something, and he was like, "Yeah, but if you stand here, and because the curvature of the Earth, like technically you shouldn't be able to see this thing." And I was like, that sounds accurate, but I haven't like looked into that. That's all just bullshit, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, man. My uncle worked for NASA for over 20 years, and he designed his own cell phone company when he was 25, built his own cell phone towers, and worked on classified projects in the rocket engineering sector of NASA. And the Earth is round. I'm sorry, and I'm not.
I believe it. We can we have a little bit of internet issues there with Orca, but we can call this the Flat Earth Show. I'm going to answer some of these comments. Thanks for everybody who's in the comments here. This is awesome. When I watched you and Orca live stream, the mic was sounding rough, but the quality is stellar. Hell yeah, boss. There's a setting in the background that I clicked on Orca, and then it says mic settings. And I think we're going to have to take him down, and he'll be back. Just sign. I don't know if you can hear me, but see if you can sign out and just refresh the page, maybe. Hopefully that helps. But in terms of this, there's a setting, and it says edit mic settings, and then it allows me to press this thing says echo cancellation. And I unchecked that, and that improved the quality a lot. Crypto Gains Club 369. What's good? Got lucky. Got the test and hair. Hell yeah. Testosterone is what he's referencing right there. I do think I will shave my head at some point though. Probably later this year. Maybe when I'm like, oh guys, hey, I'm financially free. I'm fucking peacing out. I'll just shave my head at the same time. Mazlel H. Ramley. Pull, push, and split routines. Yes. Not my style, but they do. Any routine would work for fitness wise. It just depends on your objective. Let's see if it's working. Nope, it's still not working. I think he has to reset or go to a new location in the library. Pull, push routines. They all work. I do it like more of a bodybuilding split. So say Monday is like chest and back. Chest. Tuesday might be back. Wednesday is legs. Thursday is shoulders. Friday is arms. But it's a little bit. It's far more nuanced than that for myself because there's layers on top of that, or like just like anything you do for whatever it is that you do for a living. You didn't know the same shit you know about what you do for a living 6, 7, 8 years ago, right? And I've been doing this for 20 years. So you build up this experience level related to it. Benny Blanco, what's good? I hit the thumbs up on all my profiles. That's because you're awesome, brother. Thank you. Thumbs up. If you guys are listening, press a thumbs up. Take a second. Press the share button. Yes, flat Earth. I don't think the Earth is flat personally. Bang, bang. Dab, dab, right? Using your uncle is not a retort to why you can't measure curvature. What? Using your uncle is not a retort to why you can't measure curvature. Well, I'm sure we could do the test in terms of flat Earth, but we would have to find it interesting enough to do that, right? Dude, just skydive. It's definitely round. I completely agree. I actually used to work for the government doing satellites, like did have the secret clearance and whatnot. Prove it. I don't believe it. I don't think we're going to talk about flat Earth the whole time. But we do have some stuff on the Pulse and Pulsechain that we're going to cover in detail. Asked my stepsister husband, who is a pilot, if Earth is round. He said, yep, it's round. I believe you. I 100% believe you. I am curious, though, why more people can't go to Antarctica, right? Like, why can't normal folks go up there and actually explore and research? Commercial airline pilot, is that not proof for no? I think as more people fly to space, the reality is just going to be if you say that Earth's flat, people are just going to look at you funny, right? Some people still think that the best phone is a flip phone, or the best way to communicate with people is over pen and paper. I'm stoked for the fitness challenge. I've been bulking, ready to get back to eating healthy. Bro, I am excited for the fitness challenge too. I'm very excited. I'm going to beat GRC and I'm going to beat Motley hands fucking down. I'm going to beat 250 and then I'm going to get shredded, really fucking shredded. Plus, when you've been doing this 20 years, as I just mentioned, you learn some tricks that like other people don't know, and different things that you can do to get shredded faster than other people. Richard, oh yes, so I actually pulled this up. Thank you for that. Let me share that because this was an interesting tweet. It came out just recently. Richard Hart mentions this on Twitter. Check this out. Mid-May is still the largest, or the target for the world's largest free airdrop. So my thoughts when I saw this were that he probably talked to the dev again and was like, hey, bro, we still good to go for mid-May. That means we're getting so close. That means my refinance for my property will not be going through and I won't be able to put that money into crypto before launch. But I'll figure it out. I will do something else. We have actually have something really good prepared. I think Hex Orca is going to be in the green room in a second. We've got this we're going to cover. We've got this we're going to cover in just a few moments. So when Orca actually gets his internet back up, I think his beard was probably interfering with the Wi-Fi signal. Hold on a second. I think that might. Oh, there you are. Yes, it is working.
I got, yeah, man. Nothing out here likes to use internet. It gets to be windy, and we all have to use like rotary phones and stuff. So
there was somebody in the comments who was like, Hex Orca secretly believes that the Earth is flat. He just doesn't want to say it because people will give him a hard time.
Dude, I'm Team Banana Earth. Earth is shaped like a banana. We all live on the peel.
Did you see that? Did you see this? Not this, actually. But did I just delete it? This tweet from Richard Hart.
Yes,
mid-May.
Of course.
That's interesting. I think that he probably just talked to the devs and was like, "Hey, you guys still think we're good for mid-May?"
Right. And that's what it sounds like. And the thing that stands out for me is that he says V3 AMM bot is working because people may recall when V2B came out, or before V2B dropped, he referred to the AMM bot running a V2B. So the bot is one stage ahead of us.
Ooh, interesting. So that's a good little preview to what we're going to be talking about in a second. I put together like a little presentation for y'all.
Oh, I love it, dude. I can't wait. I didn't get a chance to watch the video, but I was kind of observing your thumbnail, and I think I have an idea of where you were going.
Oh, you're going to love this. Because I was like, who else would appreciate this? When we're talking about P-hacks and E-hacks and the wrapped E-hacks and the wrapped P-hacks and arbitrage. And then Wendy's for Tendies earlier today actually mentioned something interesting. If you take a step further, I was like, oh, that's super interesting. So I'll just touch on a couple more of these and we'll pull up the presentation.
Of course.
Rusty, what's good? Rusty's a good dude. 20 years of training here too. So Rusty, we were just talking about how I'm going to destroy Motley and GRC in the challenge. Sam, let me not forget I'm following your fitness. I've been in CrossFit since the second. I'm ready. Hell yes, brother. Yeah, if you guys are interested in the fitness side of things in terms of like drugs, peptides, compounds, supplements, different strategies and stuff like that around that side of stuff. First of all, I'm not saying you should do any of the fucking shit I talk about in the crypto world or on that side of things. But if you're curious about wanting to learn more about it, check it out because there's a lot of shit that people don't know about it. Orca, did you know that there's actually something you can take to change the melanin in your skin? So basically a peptide. Yeah.
Are you serious? You know, that's funny because some people know this. Some people that listen to me talk about non-crypto stuff. I was invited to a private seminar by Dr. Robert Hariri back in 2010 or 2011. And he's the premier physician and research professional in the stem cell industry right now, and he and his team invented the method through which they can derive stem cells from a placenta after a full-term healthy birth. And their company is able to turn one placenta into 100,000 doses of cellular medicine. But back, a decade ago, maybe a little more than a decade now, he was talking about gene expression and genomics and how we're able to tap into the human genome and essentially express and unexpress or close certain genetic traits. And so there was really nothing off the table that they thought. If it's something that's based in your genetics, color of your hair, how much hair you grow, how much muscle you grow, and all of that, they think that they'll one day, using different sugars and chemicals, they'll just turn it on, turn it off at will.
There's peptides and stem cells, and it is so awesome. I've been in that like arena for a long time. Did I share it with you that, by the way, probably 20 pounds to answer Chad's question, but I'll probably drop 20 pounds from 250 to maybe 230. But did I show you the NCBI website? Have you ever heard of NCBI?
Yeah, yeah.
Like the research database? Okay. Mm-hmm. So that, I like it too.
That's the website that I pull up research articles and I show people data and then they say, no, CNN told me differently.
Yes, exactly. That exact site. So I looked this up, right, for the word crypto, and you get to see, this is interesting. Just this bit of data right here, right, is super interesting. The amount of, and you have to understand what this implies, right? This is the number of papers being released around or on crypto. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? That means that there's a fuckload of corporate and government money being poured
they're the ones that fund it.
Correct. Thank you for highlighting that for people who aren't aware. Mm-hmm. Like, we're getting real close to some crazy shit happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are now starting to see, and it's the beauty of crypto. This is why, like, they always say, like, good morning, because you're so early. It's always a good morning in crypto. When you think about the way that crypto acts as in relation to the legacy finance, people get worried sometimes because they see the markets are down right now, and you have a bear market in both crypto and legacy, of course. They're very correlated at these times. But they forget that the weaker the legacy market is, the more appealing the crypto market is. So, of course, everybody's looking. Where do you put your funding? You don't put it at the thing that's been proven for 50 years. It's been researched. We know it works. It's been around for 5 decades. You put it into the thing that's emerging. You put it into the innovative technology, and that's what we're seeing on that curve.
Well, so check this out. How perfect of an exponential curve is this? Like, you can't, and this is reality. This is stem cells. Right. That's why you had mentioned stem cells, and it reminded me of we're at the beginning stages of that for crypto in terms of the research and all that gargantuan amount of money going in there. Stem cells, for people who are not aware, like, you name the issue, fucking stem cells can solve that problem.
It's the best. I'm the biggest advocate ever for pluripotent placental derived stem cells. I think it'll be. We already know that we can cryogenically freeze these things for 50 years and not lose any function or any of the what we call stemness in the stem cells. So it doesn't have biomarkers, so you could give it to your grandfather or your grandchild or your neighbor. It's literally a human miracle. It's a modern miracle.
Have you ever, or has anybody in the comments ever heard of PRP?
PRP? I'm not sure.
Platelet-rich plasma. So you have.
Oh, okay. I've heard
blood.
of it, but I'm not
so
like expert on it.
That's like that would be like the step before steroids, if you were using the steroid analogy. Well, platelet-rich plasma is that you can give your blood, right? You put it to a centrifuge, it spins it, and you just use
separate.
Yep, the platelet-rich plasma, and you pull that out, and then you inject that back in, right? Because it's full of different growth factors.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if anybody's aware of this. And remember, when I talk about this shit, like, I'm not recommending anybody do this kind of shit. You can you can buy a centrifuge online for like $300 or $400.
Oh my gosh, man!
You can do this yourself, dude.
Sam's the guy that you're gonna read about in the news. It's like Florida man used CRISPR, and now he's got like 4 arms, and they're all huge, and he's the first man to lift 2,000 pounds on a curl.
I saw this girl do it. So she drew her blood, and then she put it into the centrifuge on her desk. And this is like my office type of setting right there. She's not like a hospital setting. She's not in a lab.
Right.
Just like at home. So she puts it in there. She spins it. And she draws it. She comes back and she's like, "Yeah, what I'm doing is these bags are underneath my eyes." She gets a needle and she's like this, and she's like,
Oh my
"Fucking,
gosh!
oh my gosh,
Could
dude!"
you imagine? You sneeze one time.
It was like a 30-minute long video, and literally the bags underneath her eyes. By the time the video was done, was like she did this
That's
eye,
insane,
and then
man.
came. By the time she was over towards this eye, I was like, "Holy fuck, that blackness is gone." It was, I was that's what, because I was like, "Oh, maybe I can combine some of the strategies I'm doing for the hair stuff with PRP and do the injections in the scalp, right?" And because one of the some research shows how we'll touch on this a tiny bit more, and then we'll get into the crypto stuff.
Oh, hey, man. They love it all, I bet, man. It's a curious community.
If you do if you take a biopsy, so just like a sample of like tissue up here, and people who don't have, who are losing hair versus people who have like a full head of hair. There was one study, I think it was out of India, where there was about 2.6 times more blood flow in people who had full heads of hair. Right? So if you could increase blood flow or do things that increase blood flow, things like minoxidil obviously help increase blood flow. But I was like, wait, this PRP, if you could do that like on a regular basis, whether that's monthly or quarterly, right, that would be helpful because it's also probably fixing some of the issues, right?
Right. Yeah, there's also, and you would know this more than I do, it's not testosterone, but it's the remnant of testosterone that kills off the hair follicle. So maybe there would be something between
DHT, yes.
Yeah. So maybe between adding the blood flow, scrubbing out, whatever accumulating debris or whatever it is that essentially clogs those pores up. That would probably, I mean, how could it hurt, right?
I have a something to actually talk about that, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. Miho Minno.
Miho
Minoi. Wow. Did you hear me try to pronounce that?
Yeah,
What's
man.
good? Thank you for the super chat. Let's go. Mid-May. We're ready for this.
Awesome, man.
Quick last thing on the hair thing.
Sure.
In the gym, there's pictures on the wall of people from 60 years ago doing the flexing on the beach and shit.
Yeah.
And then you see the people crowds in the background, and you see, first of all, nobody's fat. Right? Second of all, every dude has a full head of hair. So people say it's genetics, right? I don't buy that shit. Or if it is genetics, you manipulate that shit. Why are you and I and half or 20 to 40% of the male population losing their hair if it is genetics and not lifestyle factors and the way we actually live our life? I don't know. To me, it's like, that seems pretty obvious. Like, you just look at reality, right? All the plastics.
Especially when you think about all the poison in the water and stuff like that. There's just so many chemicals that come into play. There's so much complex biology and chemistry going into that I do agree with you. Genetics, sure, it plays a role, right? If I didn't have the gene to grow hair, I wouldn't have hair, but obviously something's growing hair, so it's like, why is it seems to be so focal on men, and even women now. I'm seeing more and more women that are having thinning hair issues or insecurities with that, so it's not just a guy thing, and I wonder if maybe that is environmental stimulants.
Because I think a lot of people are micronutrient deficient, but I'm sure
100%.
people are ready to talk about crypto. And I literally wouldn't know who would be the first person that I'd be like want to chat with this about, or who else. I was like, who else might find this interesting? And the first name that comes in my mind is like, oh, Orca might find this interesting.
Hell yeah, man. I love this stuff.
So I'm gonna kind of like give you a preview, but feel free to like interrupt at any point. Like, okay. So we have EHEX, right? That's all we have currently. Mm-hmm. We have wrapped EHEX, we have PHEX, and then we have wrapped PHEX. And in the center here, we have the bridge that does that translation for us. Let's start here and follow this around to understand like how this would work. And I started thinking about this because the last conversation we had when you talked about a bridge and how they actually hold your assets and that backs up the value, right? So if somebody has, say, 10K of EHEX bag, which is about 80, you guys should definitely thumbs up for my artistic ability here.
It's better than mine, man. I can actually read yours.
So say somebody's bag is 10K in terms of USD, and that's about 83,000 tokens. So say they bring it over here on this bridge and they pay the fees to bring it over. Now, what would happen if this is trading at say 5K? Well, I would buy the shit, you would buy the shit, we put it back through the bridge over this way, and we double our bag.
Of course.
Right. So like that part's pretty simple or pretty easy to grasp, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now what about between these two and the pairs, right? How is this going to actually translate? So what if it's 1 to 10? And I'm using maybe an extreme example here, but we can talk about it at 1 to 2.
Hey, no one has any idea what it will be, so round numbers and whatever comes to mind. I mean, I always just use like 1s, 0s, and 2s, and that's my little trick to keep people from FOMOing too hard.
Because somebody's gonna be like, "Yo, how are you using 1 to 10?"
Someone right now is taking the notes like, "Okay, so I'm gonna get 1 for 10. I'm gonna 10x my bag." It's like,
so let's say that you trade one of these in, and then what you receive is 10 p hex. So what happens in that scenario? Okay, I see this. Orca sees this, and they're like, "Oh, damn. I've got $10,000 of hex. It's 83,000 tokens. Let me bridge that over, pay a little bit in fees, and then I'm going to have wrapped hex, and I'm going to swap that shit 10 for 1 to p hex, and I'm going to go from 83,000 tokens to 830,000 tokens, roughly." So
and putting the buy pressure into the 830,000 tokens.
Yes. So explain that real quick.
So because you're swapping from the wrapped hex into p hex, that's essentially the same as selling wrapped hex and then market buying p hex. So the upward price appreciation force in this case is going into the asset that you'll be holding on the end. You don't usually want to perform a trade where you end up swapping out an asset to allow the thing you gave up to outperform. And so just in this sample size of 1, you're pumping the bag that you're acquiring. That's the right flow of money. That's the way that you should be looking to utilize it.
Very simple. Like the thing that is increasing in demand that you're purchasing generally is going to be positive pressure, like price pressure. Okay, so then you're like, okay, let's do something that's slightly more realistic. Okay, so 1 for 2, right? So the same exact thing plays out here. You do the same exact scenario minus fees, right? And you double your bag. So we can play this all the way around the whole circle, right? Where we take p hex and we translate it over into here. And if this was 1 for 10 in the other way, wouldn't make sense for you to trade this way. It would make sense in terms of trading the opposite direction, because then you can get a 10x on your bag, right?
Yeah. And I think the key here to keep in mind for people that are listening, don't let this get too complicated for you. The reason that this works out really well is because whether it's hex on Ethereum or hex on Pulsechain, the contract is the same, the utility is the same, and so it's not like comparing apples and oranges. It's kind of like comparing a Macintosh apple with a Granny Smith apple. They're both apples. We know that they have very similar compositions. One of them's more efficient with its use of energy than the other. That's really the distinguishing factor.
Can you Bausch asked me at is wrapped hex? Or what does it
mean when you say wrapped? Okay, yeah. A wrapped asset is just the name that we give when we take an asset from one blockchain, its native blockchain. So like Hex is native to the Ethereum blockchain. The ERC20, that means an Ethereum smart contract for Hex, is native on the Ethereum chain. And in your MetaMask wallet, when you look up at the top, it'll say you're connected to the Ethereum mainnet. And so then you'll see in your Assets tab, Hex. But maybe you want that same asset to be visible on another blockchain and to be able to utilize it for trading on a different blockchain, like Pulsechain. You use a bridge, just like in the diagram here, and you take your Ethereum HEX, which is in the top left corner, you pass it through the bridge, and the bridge will lock up the ERC20 and spit out a wrapped PRC20, which is representative of the ability to redeem one Ethereum hex. So it's the smart contract from Ethereum that can be traded around. Now, it can't be staked on this new chain. You're not going to earn yield with it on this new chain.
Or
LP.
Yep. Or there's a single-sided pool you can get into or something like that.
Right. If that were to come about, then that would be interesting as well. And so all it means is asset from one chain brought onto a new chain. It likely has some limitations to the utility it can be used for, but in terms of the speculative trade nature, it's still going to peg roughly to the price that it originated back on its native chain.
And so, Jerry Oaksmith, what happens to the wrapped HEX when you get the PX? The same thing, where it's going to just sit here, and then there's going to be people who have or acquire this because there's a ratio or a benefit, right? And then that's going to come back over to this side. So it's just going to you can go either direction with that. You don't have to just go one direction. It's a bridge, like just so you think like crossing a river, right? You're going to be driving both ways across that. I'm just going to see if there's any good questions here. Orca is my man. Sam is the man. The alopecia is sad, but in terms of crypto, I left New York and I'm in the middle of South America. Thanks to Hex. I'm ready for Pulsechain. I cannot wait. Hey, congrats, bro. That's awesome. I'm excited for you. It's dope. I've been to a bunch of different countries, and I'd like to do some more traveling.
You bet.
What happened? Okay, what happens when the wrapped HEX, when you get the PHEX, and how does it affect the circulating supply? Go ahead.
I think I understand what they're asking. It's phrased with a slight error in there, but essentially what you're doing is you're taking the asset and putting it through the bridge. The bridge is using, you know how like we talk about HSIs with Hedron as like wrapping a stake. They're wrapping a hex stake. Well, this is just taking hex and wrapping it in a code that allows it to be populated and traded on the new blockchain. So it's really kind of actually your same asset. It's just that it's now being contained within a new wrapper that gives it the visibility and the usability on the new chain. And that way, when you bring it, if you have a wrapped asset and you bring it back through the bridge just does the protocol to take it out of that container and leave you with the ERC20 that you originally started with.
Let's talk about the second part of this question, because this could be very interesting, right? Because the whales and certain individuals are going to have an incentive to pass this over for multiple different reasons. But how it affects the circulating supply could be very interesting and could add more volatility to the price if you reduce supply, right? Then any acquisition is going to cause, or sale is going to cause, a bigger fluctuation in the market, which could be very interesting for buying opportunities.
Yeah, I think that's really the genesis purpose behind further incentivizing bridged liquidity pairs on the new network, is because you understand, and Richard has spoken to this, that the derivative supply, if you will, of that wrapped asset is going to experience more volatility. Wrapped Ethereum experiences more volatility than Ethereum. Wrapped Bitcoin experiences more volatility than Bitcoin. And so I joked with Richard one time in a space, and I said, thanks for doubling my Bitcoin bag, because I have wrapped Bitcoin, which is an ERC20, and then I'll have Pulse wrapped Bitcoin, which will be a PRC20, and they say that the supply of Bitcoin is 21 million fixed, and you go, yeah, but what if the liquidity is thick enough that the value of one real Bitcoin and one wrapped Bitcoin and one Pulsechain Bitcoin are all within peg, or all within striking distance of each other? Then you've almost, in a way, increased the circulating supply of Bitcoin. Now, in terms of what you can actually bring back to the blockchain of Bitcoin, that will require the liquidity of actual Bitcoin as it is coded on its blockchain. So that's where it kind of falls apart a little bit. But hey, no one's doing transactions on Bitcoin anyway, so who cares? All the transactions for Bitcoin are on Ethereum.
But there could be an interesting opportunity, which I appreciate and acknowledge your experience in terms of that. So the volatility, or when you say volatility, for anybody who's listening, I presume we're just talking about price volatility,
yep.
That you have an increase in price volatility of the wrapped asset. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
So that creates opportunity.
It does.
Right?
That's why you see more trading happening through the exchanges, is because it's easier to trade Bitcoin on an exchange, or even like wrapped Bitcoin, which is what it technically has to be on that exchange, because the exchange itself isn't running on the blockchain network in most cases. Okay, I'm using generalized terms just to simplify it, and so that gives you you'll see people who are hodling Bitcoin. They're probably holding it in their own custodial wallet, or they have it locked up with somebody because they love third-party risk, even though they're in, DeFi. And the reality is, the traders are exposed to more volatility, which is what traders want. You want number go up and number go down, and you play both sides or whatever. So that is something to be said. Is there will be more volatility in the wrapped assets as there's less liquidity available, and there will be opportunities there for aggressive traders to make additional profit.
So you could see if you were holding a stable, right, and you see a divergence. So like say EHEX, to give people an example, was 20 cents, right? And then you see the wrapped EHEX on Pulse, and that's trading at 15 cents, right? Have you seen like divergences like that where it's 5 cents, or is it more so like you got to go out 3 or 4 more?
They're big. They can be big. It's usually in my experience, the turn to the bear market is where the volatility really kicks in, because you have that effect of like selling creates fear, creates selling, creates fear, creates selling. And so because that is going to be tapping into a thinner liquidity book, you're going to experience the downward price very aggressively. And so if you don't have the opportunity to trade options with that crypto, you're sort of exposing yourself to just holding a very heavy asset that can drop much faster than the native asset. So you have to keep that in mind. There is something to be said, though, where a 4% increase in the price of Ethereum could be a 5 or 6% increase in the price of wrapped Ethereum, because it's overcoming the additional dip it did on the way down, and now the premium is on the bull side. So you get some of that divergence. You see a lot of it in like algorithmic stable coins. There's a ton of that volatility, especially when they're being used as liquidity across bridges and things like that. So if you ever go on price charts and you notice the wicks, the empty ends of the candles, give it a look sometime on a wrapped asset, and you'll see typically larger wicks than you do when you look at the exact same time frame back on the native asset.
So somebody could use that for part of an acquisition strategy potentially?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to play it. Most of the time, when I'm thinking about wrapped Ethereum and wrapped Bitcoin trades, I'm simply looking at like a swing trade off of like a Fibonacci level or a massive CME gap close or something like that. But most people are in our community who are maybe not traders, if they're just hodlers, the smart crypto folks, they'll likely just be using these wrapped assets as a means of either earning liquidity pair fees or to swap into Pulsechain assets that they prefer to have after the bridge.
Because I'm like,
hold on to a bunch of Ethereum tokens that aren't doing shit, and you think,
right? And
I want to do something with this.
oh, you guys, this is gonna be dope. By the way, this is a record high for my channel, 47 concurrent viewers. What's up? If you guys are here, if you guys are enjoying this, press the like button, press the share button, share this out with get some other people in here. We're just trying to drop some freaking value here. I have something interesting that I want to talk to you about afterwards, because there's several more questions I want to talk about. But it is Azura, I think it's called, or something like that. It's a lending platform. There's going to be a protocol coming to Pulsechain, fiat.io, but it's PH instead of the F, where you can put in any crypto and get out of any other crypto effectively. Oh, man, that sounds super interesting. But we'll touch on that in a minute, because I don't want to get sidetracked. Okay.
Oh, you bet.
Let's touch on more of these comments for just a second. How do you bridge it or switch it from the ETH network to the Pulsechain network? Somewhere in Pulsex, I don't know, right?
Yeah, if you go to the testnet, it starts something like v2.apps or something like that. For the testnet of Pulsex, you'll see a tab up there for the bridge, and if you go into your MetaMask, the same way that you put the RPC code into
bridge right here.
There it is. So the same way that you had to put the RPC code for the testnet into your MetaMask, there's a testnet for Ethereum, and it's still live. It's still available. They keep it up, forever. So you can take testnet Ethereum tokens and bridge them into testnet Pulsechain tokens, and vice versa. And that'll, once it goes to mainnet, you'll just be talking Pulsechain mainnet MetaMask assets bridged into Ethereum mainnet MetaMask asset.
I didn't even see these three dots last time I was on here. I have more playing to do on
Yeah,
the test
the voting
net.
and stuff is in there. I've done everything I can to avoid clicking the voting button because I'll just start putting proposals in there that troll the community and it'll just be terrible. So I've had to just be mature and not go in there.
That'd be funny. You should definitely do that. Or we should talk about them and then I'll put them in. So this is from, I don't know how to pronounce your name here, but how much do you guys think
I have no idea.
PX, PX and PLS testnet will correlate in real life? I think
I don't
it's
even look at it. I don't even care to look at it because the best that it can do is kind of be close, and that's usually
so. What's the what is the essence of his question?
he's basically asking, we've seen price performance on the testnet, and we're seeing like some of the tokens are pumping, some of the pairs are doing, something in yield, some X percentage of yield. Are those variables going to translate directly onto the main net? They could, man, they could, but I have no idea. We're looking at a small sample size. We're looking at some of these numbers are kind of arbitrarily decided by the liquidity providers in the testnet, and who's to say that they want to show their hand with regard to what they feel is the fair ratio and things like that. Heck, they might even mislead you in a testnet to take advantage. I mean, it's important to talk about not everybody who's investing is trying to help you. Okay, some people are trying to make a ton of money, and that requires
Purposely.
an emotional barrier. Yeah, they will take advantage of what you don't know, and so naivety is a great way to get wrecked. If you think that everyone that has more money than you is playing the same game as you, you're mistaken. Some people do not have your best interest in mind, and it's just a competitive mentality for right or wrong or different. So keep that in mind when you look at a test net and think, wow, I'm doing really well here. I've made all the right trades. I'm in all the right pools. They may not be the exact same when it goes to mainnet.
Okay, so getting back, I completely agree. People will purposely share different types of information to just take advantage of. Okay, so the ratio, right, across here, I think that parity seems inevitable to the degree that
If
I
it's
don't know
gas
the
efficient for a bot to close the gap, it'll continue to close
correct,
the gap.
and you just the difference will just be in the fees. Now, if we take this a step further, right, what happens when we consider fees and that there is probably going to be a preferential like demand for PX just due to that's the idea that that's authentic to Richard Hart, and there's going to be people perceiving that as
Of
the thing
course.
that is more valuable. Okay.
Yeah, Wendy's brought up a really good point about that. And he did he caught the secret, right? When Richard starts saying hex is whatever the hex is on my network, that's the real hex. That'll sway people's opinions. And we already knew people wanted the same utility of the hex contract without getting killed by daily accruing Ethereum gas fees. So that's not, it's super hard leap to
So
make.
what do you think about that? So if P hex, right, the quote authentic hex is higher demand, and okay, so let's look at it two ways. So we have the price between those two, right, between EHEX and PX, right, which there's going to be some type of differential between those because of fees,
Sure.
and just people who move, right, when you take an action, shit changes, like when you get out of a boat, like the boat moves, right? But let's take a look at each side in terms of the protocol, right? You have EHEX protocol, and then you have the PX protocol.
Mhm.
If we think that the fee being substantially less on Pulsechain for staking hex is going to impact people's staking behavior. I think it could drive the staking down, like in terms of shorter potentially,
Mhm.
right? Because it makes more sense if you have $26 and you want to fucking stake that shit for a month, like you can do that and it's not going to cost you any money virtually.
Right.
So I think that for people who are very small bags, and I'm not trying to say that's a bad thing like that. I have a
No, sure.
tiny fucking little bag, right? So that I'd like to expand, right? But if that's the case, right, and there's more short-term staking, how might that affect the ratio of stakers? Because that's going to affect the interest rate. So if you think that the demand for PHEX is higher, then the like rational like next step to that argument would be then that you have 9.6 staked and 9.6 staked. That the PHEX side is maybe 10.5 or 11.5 over some period of time. And there is even the potential, if we think about the Ethereum side now, what would happen as people drive down and they're like, hey, I don't want to consider this because they see the writing on the wall. Like, it's going to be relatively common to see $1,000 fees on Ethereum, I would bet, at some point in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a common occurrence, right? The normal, just $1,000 fee. Okay, cool. I remember when it was $20. That was crazy, right?
You're making me want to kill myself. Yeah, no, it can happen.
Right?
Yeah.
It could, right? I don't see that changing.
That's the path we're on. I guess to speak
that
to what you're
divergence.
getting at, the divergence is key, but that's why for me it comes down to time frames, because I'm 100% on board with you and Wendy's and that logic. In the shorter time frames, the interest will be on the Pulsechain HEX, no doubt. Lower fees, very similar APYs, maybe slightly smaller, but I'm not giving up a 10% fee, so that's worth keeping. If I maintained a net positive after fees. But then you got to consider this. Ethereum isn't dead. They're working on it. It has the financial backing to continue down its roadmap. Maybe it takes 6 years for them to get to an Ethereum 2.0 that also reduces fees and satisfies parties, and we get to like the perfect Ethereum chain that they're kind of dreaming of. At that point, what if the money flows back? What if some people say, "Whoa, hey man, things are so competitive in the staking pool on the PHEX. There's all this free APY over on EHEX, and based on the price differential, if they're within range, I'm making more on the higher APY." So that starts to create a longer term arbitrage, if you will, or like gap close, if you will, between their values. So I do look at it as, and here's one thing that most people who are newer to Hex don't tend to understand. The Hex contract can be a little complicated when you start talking about how the staking is affected, because you're correct when you say the more people, even if they're staking for like a month, that's a higher percentage of staking. That's obvious. But then the increase to the Hex rate, or the T-share rate that people talk about in Hex terms, that only increases when a stake ends. That would result in the person who ended that stake being able to restake principal plus interest and achieve a greater number of shares than their previous stake. That's the deciding factor that triggers the T-share rate increase. So if you have a bunch of people doing like small monthly stakes, those aren't going to increase the T-share rate. The bigger ones that have more T-shares to their stake, when those are matured and those are ended, that's what eventually flips the scale and says, okay, we have to accommodate now for the opportunity to, or for the necessity to keep people from staking, restaking, and somehow outrunning the increase to the share rate. So that's just a long-winded way of saying that a lot of people will be on PHEX, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a better T-share rate on one of the other chains.
And if you look at the APY, I think what I just drew is potentially accurate, which would offset, because when you think about an efficient market hypothesis, which is not accurate, right? But it's a decent framework.
You got to work with it.
It's a relatively decent framework, but it's definitely not accurate. Right?
They always tell you there's zero arbitrage opportunities because the market's so efficient.
So a question on this. So this is a slight tangent, but relative to this. So I was in Spaces on Twitter yesterday, and Famous was thinking that there's no way anybody in there, including myself, could take advantage of our opportunities. And I'm like, okay, that could be true. I completely agree that is a possibility. But when you look at the entirety of Legacy, you have a boatload of eyeballs trying to capture arbitrage opportunities, and that is why it is very, very challenging. When you look at and the magnitude of money flowing around, right? When you look at crypto, the magnitude of money flowing around is a lot smaller. The number of eyeballs is a lot smaller, and yet there's a fuckload of different, unique, strange ways of arbing things. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't have the experience that he has relative to arbing or any of that shit. And I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. Is it possible for like normal folks to do it? I mean, like, I'm not saying that anybody else is going to do what I'm doing, but like the conversations that we're having here.
You absolutely can, because, like you said, it really comes down to the amount of players, or like the amount of money that's really moving, because that's where there is net positive opportunity to get into this industry, because there isn't enough money in the industry right now to touch everything all the time and grab every opportunity all the time. And it's not integrated through one central banking system where you can have very easy flow of money to acquire whatever assets you want, right? There aren't different blockchains in the stock market. There's different stock exchanges, sure, but the largest exchanges have fiduciaries that are able to touch all of the assets. They don't need to worry about, oh, it's in Hong Kong, so we can't make that play. It's they're in the forex markets and things like that. So there is an opportunity. If the opportunity is substantial, that's probably where bots will be programmed to try and be faster than people can be and take advantage of that. Um, and so there could be the argument of, well, we know that this is a honeypot, so bots will be deployed, the ARB will be eaten up quickly. But then you've essentially gotten the passive benefit of, if the ARB is working in such a way that my EHEX value and my PHEX value normalize, and the total value is greater than whatever I just started with on EHEX, then hey, ARB the shit out of that and just get my other bag up to speed, if you would. And then I'll move them both forward from there. So sometimes you might not be the player making the arbitrage, but you could be the recipient of the benefit.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm curious to see. I'll test it out maybe with a small amount of money to see if I can see opportunity like that, because I'll share another screen with you that somebody on Twitter shared with me from QuickSwap, which is something on Matic, I think he mentioned.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, is that accurate? Okay, where so this just is basically confirmatory data showing that like what we're talking about relative to the wrapped and shit is going to hold 1-to-1, right? Because that's what it's doing over here. But to give context, he also said in early days, and this is why I was like, maybe RV is possible, because Famous is like, no, it's definitely not possible. But here you have, it's basically holding steady with the exact rate on Ethereum. But,
Right.
And this is on a different network, a wrapped version of it. But he said it used to be where this was maybe 5 cents versus say 10 cents, but the numbers were different back in the day, right? And so somebody could go over there, increase your bag substantially. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have enough
It
experience.
happens. No, that's real. What he said is real. I utilized that. I mean, that's real.
So can you tell us
There's a
about that
lot of
experience? Like what you utilize that? Can you talk to me? Did you,
Well,
you
I actually bought my first Matic Hex on accident because I was a dipshit and I wasn't looking at. I just went to. I was either on Matcha, or this might have been back when 1 inch was still legal in the U.S. And I just like swapped. I had some USDC from a sale I made, and I just wanted to swap into Hex, and I wasn't paying attention, and I swapped into Hex on Matic. And so like I was in my MetaMask on the Ethereum tab, like trying to go stake my Hex. And I'm like, where the fuck is my Hex at? And then I go over and I'm like, oh, I bought the wrong shit. Oh, God. And I went and I looked at the price and it was like a different price. So now I'm going, oh my God, I just bought some scam fucking version of Hex. Like an idiot. So
did you notice your bag was higher?
In terms of the quantity that I would have had? Only after I realized I bought Matic, because I couldn't see it on the Ethereum tab. It wasn't there. I just looked like I didn't have the token. So once I knew that it was on the other chain and I put the RPC code in, then it was there. And I saw I had way more tokens, but that looked fishy to me because I was like, oh no, man, someone got me. They have like the same logo, somehow got like a similar. And then I talked to enough people. They're like, no, Matic has it now. And I was like, okay, well, how do I stake it? They said, no, it's got to be the ERC20 if you want to stake it. So I kind of realized, I go, well, I've messed that up, and some people don't have as much experience as me, so someone else might mess that up. And then I said, does it only work if enough people make the mistake of getting the Matic Hex to bring its price up? Or is there a real value to just holding Hex that has enough liquidity backed? And so I did scoop up enough Matic where technically I think I was getting like a 4 cent, maybe like a 3.5 cent discount on the unit price. And you'd need some pretty substantial volume if you wanted to pay to like swap it into ERC20 hex.
Why?
The liquidity at the time just wasn't there. I don't know what it is now. I don't know if they have a.
What you're describing is an opportunity, right? So say you take $1,000 of EHEX, right? That's gives you whatever. Let me do the math on that real quick. I got a calculator. $1,000 divided by 12 cents, right? That's 8,300, right? Roughly. EHEX. But if you go over to Matic, if you bought $1,000 and you would say 9 cents, which would be a 3 cent, you get 11,100 wrapped Matic hex, whatever the fuck you want to vernacular you want to use, right? Then you take that shit through the bridge, and you have a 30% increase in your bag.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then you just have to swap it to, if you wanted to stake, right? Then you just have to swap it to the correct chain chain asset to be able to use that protocol. But if you just want to hold it for the speculation and the trade, then you don't have to do that.
So that could be interesting. I don't know, because there's going to be so many eyeballs in this one.
Yeah.
And there's so many more people paying attention now than there was back then, if that'll still take place. But I'll fucking buy EX all day if I get a 30% discount.
So this was my fun strategy that I threw out in that in the video I put up called Breaking Hex, was because someone like Wendy's, everyone should listen to, he's a very smart voice. Maybe he didn't give out where he's putting his liquidity pools today. Wendy's. I thought he's gonna drop. I was like, oh my god, that's where the yield is. I was like pulling up tabs. I was so ready to buy everything. But he's really good. Motley's obviously really good. When those guys are telling you everyone's going to kind of FOMO into the P-Hex, then the obvious idea should not be, how can I follow the crowd? The obvious idea should just be, are there any opportunities around me that maybe go in a different direction and create additional opportunity, maybe for additional risk? So imagine if we all agree that P-Hex is going to become significantly more popular and more people are going to be staking. What if I have an E-Hex stake right now that I'll be getting a duplicate copy of on the Pulsechain, and let's say that my stake comes to maturity once Pulsechain mainnet is live. So now I have these two different stakes. I can end them individually. I could end stake my P-Hex airdrop that I got for free, bridge it over to swap it for wrapped Ethereum Hex, bridge that back into Ethereum and have Hex. And so minus fees, I have roughly 2x the bag of Hex from the original Ethereum stake. And then I can restake that, and that would be the only time that you would be able to outrun the increase in the T-share rate. In terms of, I only made one stake, technically, and I'm only taking the principal plus the yield. I'm just also combining it with this free airdrop, this once-in-a-lifetime free airdrop, which allowed me to 2x my bag when maybe the T-shirt rate only increased 20%. I think over the last 365 days, the rolling average is like a 24 to 27% increase in the T-share rate. So if you're getting a 2x to your bag, but the rate for T-shares is only going up 20%, you're outrunning the amount of shares you can own, therefore the daily payout that would give you. And then if you compound that with the idea that the yield is lower on Pulsechain because more people are getting in there, then you're doubling bag and taking a higher APY even on the doubled bag back on Ethereum. And say you stake it for 7 or more years and you go, hey, Ethereum, fix your gas fees within 7 years. If you can do that, then by the time I go to end this stake, I've killed it.
Yeah, it's already been 7 years, maybe 7 more years so they can fix that.
Just 17, it's like the 5555 isn't long enough. We got to be able to 2x that to make it into Ethereum 2.0.
Yeah. No, I like that idea, because a lot of people, I don't necessarily subscribe to the same thinking on that, but obviously it's just like acquiring more T-shirts. Well, that to me means just like fucking invest more money, bro. Like in my mind, I'm just like increase how much money you invest, right? So if you put it in terms
really
of like
secret. I've been trying to tell people I'm a net buyer in crypto, man. This is the net buying season. New money. If I can sell something to get some cash to buy crypto, I'll do it. This is the time to buy.
And this comment reminds me of what Wendy's was saying earlier from Baus. Baus, is that how you say your name? What do you get out of pairing HEX with a stable coin? I'm going to give my thoughts, but I haven't I haven't done LP yet, right? So I'm just trying to learn as much as possible. But I do plan on doing this later this year. I can get into what I'm going to do in a minute, but I don't think that's a good idea personally. Unless there's a stupid amount of volatility, unless there's a stupid amount of volume that's going to generate you a boatload of fees, or you perceive or expect there to be a large amount of volume that is consistent that's going to generate you a boatload of fees. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea, because here's my thoughts on permanent loss, right? I just think it's a fancy word for calling opportunity cost, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. It's just fucking opportunity cost. When you take maple syrup from a tree and you distill it down, you've got like 5 gallons of syrup from the trees, and you distill that 5 gallons down into 1 gallon of maple syrup. When you take a look at impermanent loss, it's opportunity cost in my book, and you crossing the street is an opportunity cost to you not staying on the same side of the road, and the perceived cost of impermanent loss in the comments that I get in people's tweets, both comments on YouTube and comments on Facebook, is that people are scared to shit because they come up with this new verbiage that scares people because they don't understand it. So they think it's like talking with medical terms to somebody who doesn't have any medical background, right? They just have no fucking idea, so it's easy to manipulate them, right? And what is your take on intermittent fasting? No.
Well, I do love intermittent fasting, but I'm impermanent loss. I wish I could get some impermanent loss from about my stomach region. Maybe even permanent loss if that's on the table. But yeah, I agree with your sentiment there. It is opportunity cost. People tend to approach what impermanent loss looks like from their bags, if you will, and that tends to be people that don't have the experience, so maybe a smaller bag. The real value to liquidity providing is if you have so much that you would be negatively affected trying to sell your asset on the market, you're a market mover with your bag, then you can essentially offload assets for fees. And maybe you don't... the key is that for a liquidity provider, you want there to be sort of sideways trading if you are under this assumption that you value both assets relatively equally. And so you just want to scrape fees. And you don't want to lose A or B, you just want fees. So when people start talking about impermanent loss, it's probably because they don't have the thickness within their own bag to provide so much liquidity that as other players make buys and sells, it's their price is actually going to move. They just don't have the thickness there to protect it. And you can piggyback on the thickness of whales, but what if they move their liquidity and you're sleeping? Then all of a sudden you could get zapped. You go, I have all this USDC, but now my HEX is gone, and the HEX is 3,000x while I was asleep. So that's usually why it's been given sort of this negative connotation, is probably just because less economic power is there, and so the risk is higher in terms of you're probably going to end up with impermanent loss, and that doesn't mean that you'll be at a net loss. It just means that you lost opportunity somewhere else.
Right, you just highlighted it, folks. Like, you just highlighted it super casually. Like, this is no fucking big deal for him because he highlights awesome shit all the time, right? A impermanent loss does not mean an actual fucking loss.
Right.
That's not. They're two different things. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity cost. That's it.
You can have impermanent loss and profit. They can both exist.
Boom. Right? That's what so many people don't get. It's like, okay.
It scares people a little bit. You hear loss, and then you think it's all a loss. And well, it might be. And in the cases where you have smaller bags, you're probably more likely to end up in that scenario because people are going to...
Or if you...
liquidity.
Or if you just don't stay in long enough. Because
because
you can also...
And that's the beauty, right? If you have the huge bags, then... you essentially are creating how long everybody stays in because it's harder to move the price against your massive liquidity.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So to go off of Boss's thing here, another pair that might be more interesting, and if you don't fully kind of grasp the opportunity cost there, you should check out my other videos on it, but would be something like wrapped EHEX with PHEX or something. Pairing two hexes in some fashion on Pulsex is
Yeah.
probably going to, from a lot of people's POV, is going to be more of the thing to do. But then literally me saying that is like what Orca was saying, that we would probably take more of a slightly contrarian view and be like, okay, that's what every other fucker is going to do. How could I utilize that information to look at it in a different light, to make a different decision than what the masses are going to do?
Mm-hmm. But you are onto something there because, and I want to touch on one of the comments after this because they're asking about the stablecoin and an asset. But with something, Hex is unique like this, right? Because not every crypto has a use case, and not every use case is valuable. Hex has a use case, and the use case is valuable. It serves as a store of value. God, I said that word like 7 times there. But the beauty of that is that we know it's a store of value on either chain. So I don't really, if the price is pegged or they're very close, I don't really care which one I have. It's almost the exact same thing. If the APY is also close, then it's virtually the same asset. So that's where a newbie might actually find some opportunity to get involved with liquidity providing with a lower risk, who knows, this is speculation, of impermanent loss while scraping fees. And that's something where I wouldn't do it immediately because there's volatility in the earliest stages of things, but it would be a good learning opportunity if you said, hey, it's been a couple of months and these prices are between, a wrapped EHEX and a PHEX are 1-to-1. They're just so close. Maybe the bridge fee is negligible based on the peg price. Then you would put those up as a liquidity pair and say, hey, man, I'll take either hex because I can just go and stake it on Ethereum or stake it on Pulsechain. Doesn't matter. APYs are similar. Price is the same. It's the same coin. And all I'm servicing people's desire to get one or the other.
Hey, you guys, I've found Hex cheaper on a Sex. That's a centralized exchange. I just like to say Sex. Hector says that. That's interesting. Why don't you share that in the comments? Let's go a lit out there for flat.
Let's go a little out there, flat earth. Are we talking altcoins, fiat?
Having some difficulty reading these comments.
He likes to abbreviate. Not gonna lie, I'm so nervous when pulse drops because I'm still kind of cloudy-headed about what to do. Okay? So I'm gonna help you out, brother. This is why you're in the show today. You have ETH right now in your wallet. That is the worst token to hold or coin to hold for the bridge. It's the worst one you can hold. I know, I'd never get the directions. And
definitely. So why don't explain? Yeah, go ahead. Explain why ETH is. You should not have ETH in your wallet if you're going to be anything interested in Pulsechain, right, or like free money.
You nailed it. Because maybe you don't give a shit about Pulsechain. I like Pulsechain. The issue is that we know that every ERC20 we hold gets a 1-to-1 duplicate on the Pulsechain, and that will also be the case with Ethereum because the Ethereum contract we use to pay gas is an ERC20. They take the coin and they wrap it into an ERC20. So if I hold 1 ETH in my wallet pre-fork and then Pulsechain goes live, I have 1 Pulsechain coin. Okay? But the actual supply of how many Pulsechain coins exist in the universe is the number of Ethereum coins in the universe times roughly 1.26 million. So you're diluting yourself. Your free airdrop is diluted by roughly 1.2 million units, or X, I should say. So the difference is this. If I hold 1 hex and I get 1 PHEX, that's 1-to-1. That's 100% the same supply on both sides. The supply of Pulsechain will be far higher than the supply of Ethereum. So whatever percentage of the total Ethereum supply you own, you'll own roughly 1.26 million magnitudes less on the other chain. So I would rather hold any other ERC20 or a stablecoin or something so that my airdrop has a little more bang for its buck.
I've got a buddy who's holding $15,000 in ETH. And I was like, hey, bro, like that's the worst thing to hold right now. Literally, because what you're describing now. Another way to think about it, at least how I think about it mentally, is if you've got like 1.26 million ETH, right? You're gonna basically have like that divided by a bunch of zeros, so you'll have this much on Pulsechain. It's gonna be so negligible. Versus if you have 1.26 million hex on Ethereum, you're going to have 1.26 million p hex on Pulsechain, right? It's just like a magnitude of difference there. So that would be the first thing. That would be the first thing. Browse, get out of there. Just buy some hex, buy a ERC20 that you like, and hold on to that shit so you can get a copy. If you do like hex, then I would hold hex, because that's probably going to be the thing that's going to hold parity or hit parity first on everything.
I agree with that. And if you're nervous and you don't want to, maybe you're happy with your hex bags or whatever, and you're thinking, well, I want to look at a stable coin, I would recommend, I don't care about the not financial advice or whatever, I would recommend using DAI, just because it doesn't have admin keys. I don't think that USDC will necessarily be invalidated, but if DAI equals $1 on Ethereum right now, you're in a bear market, so Ethereum's not going to be pumping, at least anytime soon from what I'm looking at. Then having that stable coin can protect you from the decreased value in your Ethereum and get diluted on the Pulsechain. That's a double whammy. You don't want that. So I would maybe look at a DAI or HEX as an ERC20 worth holding on to, that I would presume is going to give me the same punching power on the airdrop.
And Box, don't worry about the questions, dude. Like, if you're not aware of this, I got into crypto 60 fucking days ago. Like,
yeah,
just
and he didn't learn all this shit by not asking questions.
Yeah, ask tons and tons and tons and tons of questions. So he asks a bunch of questions here. I'm just going to call it Matic. In terms of fiat, so this is an agave or whatever, Ave, that I wanted to actually share with you, because this protocol is freaking awesome.
This is what Wendy's was pulling up, right?
Yeah. So this protocol, from my very elementary understanding, is you can put some shit in there, anything really, from multiple different networks are supported. You can put in wrapped Bitcoin into this, and then you could pull out something else on the other side, right? So if that's the case, think about and I haven't run through this. I don't know the terms of payback interest. I have no idea of how this Aave network works. If I go through and finish getting this refinanced on the property, and I get $100,000 of refinance cash and put that into crypto, I could just buy $100,000 of, say, HEX or something or anything really, USDC, put it into here, something that provides, a yield or is advantageous for some reason, and then pull out HEX on the other side and take the HEX and stake it, because then I'm able to borrow against that twice. But I haven't run through the numbers to does that make sense in any way? And I'm curious, thinking this out loud.
Yeah, so that's I'd also have to look at Aave a little bit more, because I haven't used it, but it is true DeFi from everything I've heard from some guys that are really big into using loan protocols or asset leverage protocols, where they're able to. And when I say leverage here, I'm not talking about lever me up 10x. I'm talking about let me take a handle and give myself extra power. How do I maximize the utility of my assets? So yeah, imagine getting, say, 100K cash equity, and you say, well, I know that crypto is probably the asset class that will outperform even real estate. So you go and you purchase a crypto, and then I assume the terms of what you pay back are probably in the asset that you used as your
collateral. You borrow?
Yeah, maybe as the borrow. The borrow would make sense, right?
So that would make sense, but that doesn't necessarily have to make sense.
As I said that made more sense. So I was kind of looking at it for how you're going to get the money back, and so
because you could double your exposure, right, for the same amount of money.
What if I borrowed stable, which I know I'm only paying back a stable, $1 plus an interest rate, which is a very easy number to calculate, and then I take the stable that I borrowed and I go and I buy a shitload of HEX and stake it. And, assuming that HEX doesn't somehow get wrecked, which it wouldn't, then the increase that you earned there is a non-taxable event that you've turned into additional gains, and then you just go and you buy back your original capital or whatever, but you've made the profit in the end.
Or I'm sure that this is going to take place on Pulsex, but PancakeSwap, right? So PancakeSwap, there are many different pools with over $100 million TLV. Which I wanted to ask you about the TLV in a second, but there's many different pools where they have over $100 million of TLV and they're earning over 60% annually. And it seems to hold steady. So, and I was talking to Tangent in Australia, and he said, yeah, like he did a little bit of LP, like, I don't know, one or multiple times. And he said, it seemed to imply that if you're earning 40%, like in a yield, like you probably don't know what you're doing, or you're just lazy, or like that's baby scam kind of thing. I don't know if that's the theme across the board.
Tangent's similar to me. He'll take risks. If you want to, it should be obvious to you. If I walked up to you, Sam, and I said, hey, now it might be hard, you might be less sketched out by this because you're actually in crypto now. But if I said, hey, I can get you 12,000% APY on your money, would you think?
Scam! Right?
Yeah, maybe I'm pissing on you and telling you it's raining. So there is increased risk, right? You're not going to get those yields without risk. You maybe you got the first mover advantage, but even then, if it's truly a sustainable opportunity, as we know, the economic opportunity cost will bring in other players until they get it down to a point where the opportunity is somewhere else. So you can definitely, the more active you want to be with doing liquidity providing, the more profitable it can be. Liquidity providing is not, for most people, not a passive play. For most people, they have to keep an eye on their assets because of impermanent loss and price movements. The whales that are going to put up big enough bags that they can sort of range the market prices, they're not going to worry about that. And they're going to have LPs all over the place. So, yeah, you could do it depends on how much risk you want to be exposed to, because you understand that stable coins pegged to $1 are going to be worth $1 when you redeem them. So yeah, maybe I'm only getting X percentage, but I just know I'm not going to lose anything, and I don't have to watch it, and I don't have to worry about $1 being worth 50 cents all of a sudden. So there's value to that, but it's reflected in the lower APY.
So to run through this, right, to the stable coin. So hypothetically, 100 grand, borrow against the house, right? You're paying probably 6% now, right? Because of all the shit that's fucking happened. So
Yeah,
paying 6%, which is crazy to say.
50 on stables and just outrun it with fees.
Right. So if that's the case, I'm going to pull up a calculator here. You have 100,000, right? And you put it into Aave, and you pull another 100 grand against it. I don't know. I got to dig more into the protocol, but just hypothetically, now you have, say if that was a stable, or say if it was like DAI, right? Because then I can get a copy, or say if it was HEX, right? And I pull out another against it or something. So wouldn't that be cool if you could put in HEX and then pull out another 100 against your HEX, so that you're say have double exposure there to HEX? Like, what the fuck? That would be dope as fuck.
Right.
But,
yeah, man.
Right, and so say if you could take your HEX, say if you split your bag and you did ETH and HEX, right? Because somebody just messaged me that they're getting over 100% with 100 grand on their LP of HEX and ETH on, I think it's on Uniswap.
Yeah, man.
So,
have you ever thought about punching them in the mouth? Because I want it all to be HEX and USDC. Tell him to get that fucking ETH. No, he's right though. It's better for fees.
Okay, so if you have 50 and 50, right? You have $50,000 of a stable or something, and $50,000 of whatever the other side of that is, and maybe you pick things that you enjoy, right? So maybe it's wrapped PHEX and HEX, right, on Uniswap or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And you're earning fees. So say you could get anywhere near like what is available in PancakeSwap, what is available to the gentleman who shared the screenshots with me, who's earning over 100% on his 120 grand between ETH and HEX. I think it was ETH and HEX. Could have been wrong, but I know it was HEX and something else. I thought it was ETH. Yeah, probably. Okay, so say you get 60%, say you get 50% on that shit, right? So you have 100 grand and times 0.5. You get $50,000 a year. You divide that by 12. You have $4,000 a month, $4,100 a month, right? You peel $1,000 off to pay your bill. You're left with $3,000. You take your $3,000, you can DCA into HEX stakes.
Yeah.
You get double the exposure because you're using Aave. So you have your Aave there. You pull against that. So you have exposure here against it already. So this bag can change in value as well. Because you still own it. You just have to pay your shit back, right? So then you pull that out, you take what's left over, so now you have double exposure. You use that to earn the fees, to pay back the mortgage, and you take another $1,000 and put it back towards paying off your loan, right? Or something like this.
Yeah, this is why crypto is inevitable, in my opinion, because your money goes to work for you. There's more places to put it to work. There's ways to have it almost double, triple employed. Your money is working four full-time jobs. There's a lot of opportunities like that. In legacy, you're much more bound to the highly regulated, highly competitive, highly manipulated market, and you're going to be competing against people that have inside information with regard to news events that'll drastically change the value. Like Hex doesn't have news. You know what the news in Hex is? Still works. That's all it is. Like people that I coach up sometimes from Legacy, they're always like, "So what's the news with Hex today? What's it?" And it's like, I mean, other than Richard's Twitter feed, there is no news, man. It is what it is. It works, and that's why people love it. So yeah, when you start looking at those opportunities to loan, and there's also the benefits of the tax implications and how you can sort of yield farm to outrun. You're just battling interest rates, right? You're just saying, I'm better at interest rates than you are, bank, and you're going to be happy because all they want is free money. They just want that interest paid back, and you'll come out on top. I think it's a really, if you're hip to, and you are, you can run a budget. If you're hip to your own personal budget and your finances, I think it's a beautiful play.
Because that means in 24 months, my fucking shit's got it's like a 1 or higher than a 1 number with 6 zeros behind it. I can see that in the works real quick,
yeah, man.
Right? Because I can still keep putting fiat in there throughout that. That's assuming that there's no price appreciation. If there's a bull run at any point during that process, say the bag that I borrowed against goes up by 2x, which means I can borrow, or 4x or 8x. That means I can borrow double the money against or triple the money against that initial bag that is going to exist, or more yields to pay off this, to buy
or
it
even
again.
have it paid off right away, and now it's just free money that you've extracted.
And then do it again. I'd be like, "Hey, bank, I want $150,000, and
you'll
I'll
be
pull
the
it out
bank's
again."
best friend, man. If they I work with credit unions, they tend to be more friendly with crypto, so they know where my money's coming from, but they want it, man. They want my business, so they're not too curious about the crypto game. They don't really want to look at it, and they're probably, because they're the credit union that I have right now is pretty friendly about it, and I don't know, maybe they'll change. I'm like their favorite customer, Hey, I need a loan. Perfect. Okay, how much you need, man? Well, whatever you need, we're happy to help.
Have you tried the strategy, Frank? Yes, we did talk about this. Yes, you probably have less impermanent loss. But if you hold two things that you enjoy, like PHEX and HEX or EHEX or whatever, or wrapped EHEX, right? Because that's what you're providing. If you're bullish on HEX, it doesn't fucking matter which direction it goes because you're good. So, but more than likely they're going to be pegged in some way. Have you tried? Because I've thought about this too, is using a business line of credit and pulling out money and then be like, okay, that's going to be $400 a month I need to pay for, say, 20 grand or something, right? And then using that 20 grand and earning 40%, 50%, but take that 20 grand and put it into, say, 3,000 locks or 3,000, segment spread out into six different protocols, right? Or 7 different protocols, right? Where they leave a tiny 1 month or 2 month reserve, so it's 60 days out or something, 90 days out, and then use that to earn the yield to pay back that loan. So the bank is buying my way into crypto. Have you tried that?
Yeah, 100%. That's like the thing I do.
Dude, you gotta share the story, bro. Come on, dude. What are you doing here?
I don't like to always dox myself too much. So,
hypothetically, but tell me exactly the details from this hypothetical example.
Yeah, so as you may recall from our previous conversations, when I decided to go back to school, I utilized fixed rate federal student loan, through FAFSA, and I invested that money into HEX, staked it, and was able to keep enough cash reserve that even if HEX had a really rough run for a while, I could still have money on the side that would be able to buy me some time to go and scrap together a job or something. And so I got my student loan. I'm making money with HEX. It's outrun. It's worth well beyond the cost of the student loan now. And I actually approached the bank, the credit union, that authorized the FAFSA, and I said, "Could I get an additional student loan?" And they said, "Yeah, how much do you need?" I said, "What's the limit that I can get?" And they said some number, and I said, "Yeah, that'll work." So they weren't going to give
They're
it
like,
to
can you
me.
do more?
Yeah, right. They were like, "Hey, man, whatever we'll give you 17% if you want $1 million." But they gave me a really good rate on it, fixed, which is the key, and I then had a windfall of cash. Unlike the FAFSA, that some of that money you have books and tuition and stuff like that, so you either have to take that out of your cash or out of the loan, so you're not escaping that. That payment needs to be made up front. But this additional loan didn't have a tuition fee. It didn't have books to buy. It didn't have meals to buy or whatever. So it was just a windfall of cash. And then by utilizing, I segmented it. So I took about 20% of the new loan and I kept that as just cash on the side. And it was kind of like I was prepared to pay off a credit card with a credit card if I needed to. That was just buying time. That's all that was. 20% to buy me time if everything went to shit. And then utilizing some stablecoin liquidity pools, and I put, I want to say about 30% into liquidity pools that were either pairs of stables or were an asset that I liked and a stable coin, and I had much lower impermanent loss risk there, but with high enough volume trading going in that pair that I was earning real fees, and the real fees were...
What were some of the yields hypothetically?
Yeah. So in the stables, I had anywhere from 40 to 60%, depending on how long I was keeping it in.
Oh, wait.
This was during a bull market, though.
40 to 60%. So if you had it there for 6 months, you're talking about still earning 40 to 60%? Or you're like 46% if I held it for a year? Did you earn 40% in a 6-month period of time, which would be an 80% return?
Right. No, it was about 40% in a 12-month period.
Okay, cool.
And I had it in there. And then I took a shitload of it and put it into HEX, and I staked the HEX for I think it was 6 months after the initial payment of the first student loan would be due. So I had it ready that whatever that HEX is going to be worth, it'll come due in time to make the first payment on the loan or even just pay it all off, right? And so I used that knowing I have like the stable coins to pay if everything else went to zero. I know the stable coin's worth $1, so I have enough safety reserve in the stablecoin pair to be earning enough to kind of like I said, I'll have time. If I had zero money in crypto, I'd have time to pay back the interest and keep myself afloat, figure things out, and pay it all off. Things went better than that, and so now, especially with this current administration, we're looking at yet another deferred, right? Another
mine says
deferred payment
2023
extension. Look, man, he's canceling mine. He's gonna cancel. I don't know about y'all, but he's canceling mine because I came up with this theory like 3 years ago, and it's coming out perfectly. So I just need him to cave and eat the right caramels and give us a total wipe. But that set me up to be able to use the loan money to make money, and then, what was the other play I made?
Did you do any additional things at the credit union or borrowing?
No, I didn't. Just because it was a little bit of a degen play, but it was a play that I had been game planning for since before this current administration. So I knew, I was like, if these dominoes fall, then I think I'm looking at the world through clear lenses, and I think the direction we're heading in looks like this. So I'm going to make a couple of these plays, and that's exactly what happened. And now we see gas cost $4 a gallon or whatever, and I have gotten my nut. I've achieved the returns that I needed. So those loans have no borrowing on my life, and I have all this extra time. There's even if I wanted to go and piss that money away on a new car, I'll still have the 6 months after the end of the schooling period and deferred payments beyond that, and consolidation opportunities, things like that. So it's just free money.
And are you still using the stables to earn yield every month or not anymore?
I have moved as of last week. I have moved most of my assets out of pools. I'm not in any liquidity pools right now.
Yeah, because of the launch kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So that's really good to hear. That actually makes me feel even better about the crazy fucking shit I'm thinking about doing as well. Because
Yeah, dude. People thought I was a degenerate. Like people that because I was working a job and making really good money, and the people that I worked with are all older than me, but I was their boss kind of thing. So it's like they think they know better than me, but maybe the internet has changed, the learning curve for people. So there was an opportunity there, and I was like, man, I don't know if I want to keep sitting in this chair and just watching my salary be less and less, even though the number isn't changing. And so I kind of described the play, and they were like, "Well, that's just too risky." And it's like, dude, I don't think you have kids, right? So we're in that kind of unique situation where it's like the risk is easier because I'm not worried about feeding anyone else, and I know about how long I can fast. So it's like even if I blow it all up, I'm independent enough. I can get to tomorrow. And so I made that play, and it was absolutely the smartest thing to have done at the time.
and
I
you
still
are
intend. I might even. I still intend on probably going back into working one day. Like I'd like to be a professor. Um, I don't know if I'm going to go the JD route or a PhD route, but I'd like to be a professor that brings financial awareness to people and not in the classic gap accounting and let's look at forward-looking earnings and shit like that. Like let's talk crypto and let's talk DeFi and let's talk real finance, things that you
what,
can control.
what about doing a course that actually provides value
Right? Yeah,
that you
that's
can
that's
not
one.
but not so when we think of professor, we think of like people who don't actually do things in society and don't know what the fuck they're talking about
Right.
from a reality standpoint,
There's a
right?
lot of them.
Most of the time,
There's a lot of
right?
them. Yep.
Versus creating a course and putting it on one of those plenty of different course sites where
Hmm.
you can actually provide value and it's a fraction of the cost and you're providing 10x times the value that somebody's
Right.
getting from paying a course in school.
Just like the good old days of YouTube University, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I am actually working on right now a resource that'll be primarily free to use. There will be opportunities for premium content, but for me, I'm much more of the school of thought of give it away for free, and then if people really, really want it, they'll pay for it, and you can settle that. Let me get the light back on.
Yeah, no, let me touch on a couple of these comments real quick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jerry, what's good, Jerry? Can you touch on a vampire attack? Can we pulse vampire attack anyone? Yes, that's actually going to be taking place with the AMM bot, but it would have naturally happened anyway, in my opinion. I don't think you necessarily needed an AMM bot because if somebody was like, "Hey, this is where we're going to go," when you get a free copy of all the dexes on Pulsechain, nobody's going to fucking use them if Richard Hart's like, hey, we're just going over here to this dex and we're just going to use this dex, even if you didn't create one. Like, you would vampire attack it anyway because people would just be like, okay, well, piece the fuck out. I don't think the vampire attack was necessary, but what a vampire attack is, from my understanding, is you're just, the vampire, how they bleed people out, right? And they suck their blood out. That's what you're doing in terms of liquidity. You're pulling the liquidity out of the other dexes, the decentralized exchanges. So people want to go where there's the most amount of trading, there's the most amount of liquidity, right? Because the perceived risk is lower. So that's where people want to go. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on the vampire attack, but I
Yeah,
think to
typically
add
when
to that.
Richard speaks about vampire attacks. Typically, what he means is just like leeching users. So he more so means like a leech strategy, but he's just sort of talking about the osmosis of bringing the traffic from Ethereum onto Pulsechain, and that's sucking the blood out of Ethereum. But what that ultimately does is lower the traffic on Ethereum, which could help their gas fees, which is why he doesn't present Pulsechain as the Ethereum killer. It's a complement to Ethereum. It allows extra capacity, lower fees on both chains. Um, Although obviously Pulsechain has the superior model in the immediate and long term from what we know right now. Um,
Yeah,
there's there's definitely also some things to do with liquidity that you could speak to that same term.
Chad and Matic both mentioned hitting the like button. If you're watching this, if you're liking what we're going to say, and if you're liking what I'm saying, you should press that like button. We're trying to grow the channel, right? One of my goals for this quarter workout is to actually transition to having more of my income coming in from crypto than coming in from the fitness related stuff that I do. I love fitness, but one of my personal goals, I would like to do this far more full time, focusing
Yeah,
on
man.
crypto. It's fascinating. I'm
You've got an
super
excellent
intrigued.
personality for it and a great brain for it, both from actually knowing what you're talking about with finance, but also being curious. A lot of people are stuck in their ways. They're not going to do well in crypto. You got to be dynamic. You got to be fluid out here.
And
You
it's,
think
I
it was a
think
scam yesterday is the 10,000x tomorrow, man. Hex. It's like,
your
you gotta
your
learn.
your play with the loan money, right? Other people perceive it as risky, but it's going
Yeah.
to be, I would
And they're
bet.
all still working at that same job, and their salaries didn't increase at the same rate as inflation. So I don't go to work. Who am I?
And you're also, that's probably going to get you to 7 figures. I would bet. You don't need to
Yeah.
share any information, but I'm sure that will get you there. If it hasn't already, it will be there at the next bull run. I have no doubt about that, which is beautiful, right? Because then you're like, okay, cool. I'm going to continue doing what I do, but only focus on the highest value things that I can provide the most impact to society in the ways that I get the return in terms of fulfillment of like providing
Exactly.
like professorship or whatever it is to the
Yeah.
value to the marketplace.
Because dude, growing up, I was so frustrated with the world because I was young and dumb, but nothing added up. I can remember having conversations with my dad when I was 12 years old and thinking about how unfair the wage was at McDonald's. And the typical capitalist would be like, look, skilled labor, marginal product of labor versus whatever. But when you really break it down, you learn the financial markets more, and you see how the game is rigged with the central banking system and the Fed. You go, oh, there's a whole different thing going on. This isn't like a random decision. Nobody just randomly decided that these people are going to be stuck in this class level. It's dictated. It's a strategy. They're playing a game strategically, and then you get introduced to crypto, and that kind of compounds that learning. Because to be the best at crypto, in my opinion, you have to really understand how your money works back in fiat. How does the banking system work? And when you have respect for both of those, you can really tap into the power of crypto because you see all the inefficiencies of legacy. And you just go, well, I'm just going to have more efficient money, and it tends to yield awesome results.
Yeah. Oh, on the counter side to that, but I also want to touch on Hector's comment. I agree that having just from our conversations, it just sounds like you have an understanding of legacy finance, right? Like, because the way that you talk and the way that we have conversations, but I also see how trying to have a conversation, say with, John across the street or Joe Smith at the gym or something, can be challenging because of that knowledge. It's like, you got to break through this wall and tear this down brick by
Yep.
brick for them to understand that you can just get free fucking money and you can get yields that are north of 40% and you
Right.
can do this crazy shit that you couldn't do before and retire in 2 years or 36 months
Yeah.
and do
And
all
people that
sorts
get
of.
nervous about that because it almost sounds too good to be true, you have to remember that certificate of deposit in legacy used to give you meaningful returns. They used to. There's so much economic waste because of the middlemen, and they are men, they are people, they are buildings with electric bills. There's so much waste that what used to be high yield, they just can't do it because it would break the bank. So crypto just eliminates all of that extra waste, and then you go, wow, that yield seems almost unrealistic. That's what's left. That's what's out there when you get rid of all the waste.
Well, once like Blackstone and these other companies start to figure out the PE firms and the hedge funds, is because they're looking for they're searching for this minuscule leverage on trying to find like real estate, and then they're levering the fuck up, and then they're raising money to raise the leverage for themselves even more. And
I think that's probably why Bitcoin hasn't gone below like 27K yet. It's probably because a lot of institutional peripheral entities or proxies or whatever you want to call them are probably playing a little bit of that game right now.
Yeah, Hector. So, in regards to how do you onboard people to the crypto fitness challenge? Well, prizes are awesome, right? Like, you want to be one of 3 people that gets either the full bag or a split of over $13,000 with a crypto, free education, all that kind of stuff. Like, you're like, that's just a bonus. Don't even mention it, but like, hey, dude, do you want to improve your fucking health? Do you want to put on some muscle? Do you want to drop some body fat? It's all free. There's these 2 whack jobs, right? One of them has been in the fitness industry for over 20 years. I've literally done over 10,000 exercises, 10,000 different times in the gym, like working out. Like, you build up the experience level that just can't. It's very hard to match that shit because it's happened over 20 years, right? And so I would position it as that. Like, do you want to improve your health? Like, are you trying to get them to think about their issue, and solving their issue is way easier than trying to talk about crypto with them. Because if they focus on, they want to drop body fat, they focus on, they want to put on muscle, if they focus on like, hey, I got to heal this injury or do this rehab or whatever the case is, to just be more confident in their life, like focus on that shit. I think you're going to have a way better sell to get people involved in that or whatever. This here, not financial advice. I think this will be the next route the government tries.
Yeah, I just look, man. They're gonna die if they bring me into court because I'll represent myself and talk all day. They'll just have to listen. I'll say, actually, I think I have one more point. Time's lunch. We don't need a recess.
That would drag on for so long. That'd be so hilarious, though. Oh, that guy cool. I got wrecked this year on Hex. I don't know if you got wrecked unless you did. If you didn't sell, you
yeah. Well, this year, if it's 2022, that's yeah. But that's the interesting thing is, Hex is not immune to the world around us yet. Crypto in general is not immune to the world around us. I play this little theory out that I say Bitcoin is the proof that crypto works. Ethereum was the free trial of DeFi, and Pulsechain will finally bring the full affordable version to all the users that want to touch it around the world to DeFi. And that's the real goal here. And so the market right now looks horrible because the global economy is horrible. But that will not always be the case. There will not always be that direct correlation. If enough critical mass exists in a decentralized platform that is able to transact with a currency other than a US dollar for products and services or NFTs or whatever you want to buy, then you create your own insulated economy and you can come to and fro to fiat. So while you may look wrecked right now, that's more so a transitory. Holy moly, Jim Rat.
Oh, what's up?
Killing it, man.
Jim Rat, a house he needed to make sure that he was seen. Like, if you guys are
man, he's
like,
not about to be showing
awesome.
up out here.
Hell yeah.
That's very cool. And Nemo, you got another one there, maybe. You got, This is the place to be right now.
Whoa, what's up, dude? That is awesome. I went by some comments, so because there was a couple for you. Did you drop out of school? I forget who asked that question. Did you drop out of school?
Me?
Jerry asked that question.
I love school, man. I'll probably be in school the rest of my life.
Can you talk to this for a second? They're not launching at the same time. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you get to read it? Well, one of them's the bridge is not going to be live, which means you're going to be playing with fake Pokemon.
Pulsex is the bridge.
But it's attached to it, right? Pulsex is the bridge. Can you explain that to me then, please?
Yes. So Pulsex is its own thing. It's a decentralized exchange. It's just a decentralized swapping tool. But it doesn't have anything to do with the assets that end up inside of it. The bridge is a separate protocol altogether. Wendy said the name of the code
OmniBridge
today. OmniBridge, yeah. And the bridge operates all the bridge does is take an asset, wrap an asset, unwrap an asset.
But so it's
no swapping.
The bridge is like, so from the noob standpoint, from the UI UX, right, the user interface, you go to Pulsex for Mike. You go to the Pulsex.com or whatever it is, like the app is going to be. You go to the DApp, the digital app or whatever the fuck that acronym stands for. Mm-hmm. The bridge is going to be on Pulsex. Yeah. In the back end, it sounds like
if they keep that different. Same setup, if they keep that same setup that we see on the testnet, then that's true. But you just wouldn't have the bridge tab yet. But like the DEX will still be a fully operating DEX. The bridge is just a tab that they're saying like, look, we know what you want. You want to use my DEX or you want to use my Pulsechain. Well, guess what? Then you can go to my branded DEX and click the tap down for my branded bridge. Use that bridge to get your assets into the DEX.
What are the? I haven't seen any of the information on the bridge. Richard Hart said that they are. So you had mentioned last time when we spoke last week that it could be done by other people. And then I was listening to Richard Hart's live stream last time, and he had mentioned OmniBridge. I wrote it down. I have, and I actually think I have the tab pulled up here to actually go through and finish reading this research, like their white paper, to understand it more, right? But he had mentioned this is the bridge that seems to have the least amount of hacks or issues with the bridge, right? Because we've seen a lot of that. So from what I would imply or take away from what he's talking about, it sounds like he is implementing the bridge as part of, so like people don't know they're going to be two separate things. If you're a noob and you don't realize it, you're going to go to Pulsex, that is the DEX combined with, and it's also the vernacular that he's used in other videos where he talks about we're going to have a DEX and we're going to have the bridge, and talking about them together is synonymous. Like, and then it's in the user interface so people don't have to go to two separate spots. Like, I think the technical back might be completely separate, but when you look at the front of it for anybody who's actually going to use it, they're going to go to pulsex.com and you'll be able to swap there as a swap, like as in a DEX, but you'll also be able to bridge your shit over. Like that sounds accurate, right? Or
that is accurate. The way you said that is accurate. And the bridge tab just won't be there for the first probably 26 hours. By the way, oh my gosh, huge pat on the back. 'Cause I think it was back in August of last year. I said the bridge is not. Everyone said it's going to take 2 weeks for the bridge to be deployed, and I said it's going to take 24 hours and 3 seconds is how long it's going to take. And
why is that? Why there's a delay? Can you talk about that? Because there's a 26. Mike was asking, right? But there's actually a delay.
Yeah, there's a delay, and there's a legal purpose for that. So when you launch the coins at zero value, you don't want anybody to be able to bring in an other market's asset that has the USD value and start making pairs, because then your zero value goes from zero to something in USD terms. And as long as the launch lasts for 24 hours, technically it would only have to last for 8 hours, but 24 hours is safer, then the pricing is zero for, think of like in the stock market, right? On Monday, opening bell to closing bell. If from opening bell to closing bell of one session, the asset is zero priced, there's no USD value, then there's no taxable event. The airdrop requires at least one trading session's worth of custody at no value to establish the initial value.
You guys, if you're listening, this is awesome. So this is brand new information for me. So there's a 26-hour, from whatever, there's going to be a 26-hour gap, and I didn't have any context to why there would be a 26-hour gap from when you get your airdrop. You'll be able to trade shit beforehand, like pre-bridge is how it's positioned, right? Pre-bridge, you can trade your shit, right? Well, that is due to the legal reasons, according to Orca. That's fascinating.
Yep.
This is why I wanted to have Orca.
Administering ICOs and things like that. So if you wanted to do that in the stock market, it's not really possible, but the way of looking at it is like your cost basis could be based on opening bell price or closing bell price, depending on if you held the asset before the session began, or if you purchased it in the pre-market, or if you purchased it in the live market. There is real physical value to the time of when the money is recorded as being owned, and that will establish the base price. So by not allowing there to be base price in USD terms, which is the only thing the government cares about, our government cares about, then you negate the taxable event of acquiring an asset of value. It's a zero value asset.
That is dope. That's super interesting. I appreciate that. Mike says that he wouldn't be comfortable getting a loan and putting into a speculative asset. Don't do what we talk about. Like, definitely not recommend.
It's not for everyone.
Correct. 100%. Is that why your name is Crypto Curriculum? Why don't you just call it Crypto Curriculum? It would be way easier for me to say that.
It's too long for Twitter, man. I wanted it so bad, but it's like one character too long. I was like, really, dude? Come on.
Dang. But that'd be way easier for me to say.
I know, man, right? But that's, got to help with the vernacular out here. Good to see you too, completion fails.
Warca's one of my favorite accents too. He's awesome, right?
I love his.
He's great.
Yeah, man.
Dark mode.
The crypto curricula is because the website I plan on putting together will have a history of money dating back to probably like, I don't know if I want to go as far back as like the 1600s, but at least to like 1815, and discussing like the origins of banks and things like that. So crypto curricula will basically be the starting point of financial literacy, explained all the way up to what's required to really be dangerous in crypto. And
so I'm just like making weird shit.
And then I may, if people want to get more interested in high level technical analysis or trading or loan protocols and stuff, I may put premium content out there to create at least a little friction so that people don't jump into things that they maybe don't need to be worried about. But for the most part, the majority of the education will be free, and that's just because I see so much confusion with regard to, just like when Richard talks about bonded liquidity and, well, why does it seem like they all sell off at the same time? And then you look at legacy, like you've identified, and you go, yeah, but legacy does it too. Of course it does. And that's because there's this thing more important than the money that we hold, and it's the person that decides how much money is in play. And they do that with interest rates. So that has massive implications on the value of your bag.
I want to talk with you, but I gotta mention this comment. I gotta write a note down real quick. Okay.
Sure.
GRC mentions about Twitter followers. By the way, anybody who is watching, there's a link for my Twitter down below. I'm actually trying to catch up to and surpass GRC's Twitter following before the 90-day fitness challenge is over.
Nice.
So if you want to help, like, I can't win the $13,000 with the HEX, but I can win with more Twitter followers and bragging rights, right? So if you guys want to help, I'll share.
I'll share like 4 burner accounts. You guys pay me off, and you'll get my extra burner follow.
I'm gonna drop my Twitter below. You should definitely go check me out too. And I just wanted to highlight that correlation. When somebody was bringing up Hart's, GRC actually was bringing up Hart's law and just bonding of prices, but you're like, well, yeah, that's what happens. It's called correlation. Like how I saw it, right? Nothing against him, but it's like the Burr method in real estate, right? Like everybody's doing it, and then one person decides to be like, oh, strategy in real estate that is the best is Burr, right? And you're like, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat the process, or whatever the case is, right? And they just put that on there. Now, when you look at correlation of assets, correlation increases during bear markets,
of course,
and decreases during bull markets. Well, that's a very interesting concept, right? Like, how could you utilize that to your advantage?
Here's how you utilize it. Everyone that just heard that, go buy as much HEX as you can afford to invest in, because this is the game that's being played. It's when they say that the rising tide floats all boats. The inverse of that is that if all the boats are down at the bottom, it's because the tide has been taken away. It's not because the boats got heavier. That's not part of the equation. The tide's been taken out from beneath you. And so when the Federal Reserve makes decisions with how they operate with their true interest rate, that has massive impacts. And so as the true interest rate increases, especially after a huge stimulated economy, you're going to see what they call quantitative quantitative tightening. And that means that essentially they're going to lower the sea level of all the money that's in play. And when that happens, you don't want your money to be doing this. So the assets you own, the equity you own, the crypto you own, you withdraw. And that's when they say cash is king. Oh, everyone's running from the markets. Cash is king, cash is king. And so you sideline yourself while the tide is low, and then you put your boat or your money or your assets or your crypto back onto the tide when it's beginning to rise, and you've maintained the value of your assets because it became cash and you just held it, and then you deployed it again at these adjusted unit values, and you ride the tide back up. But some boats rise faster than others, and those are ones that have good market product fit, that have good utility, that have a strong market of demand, and that's something that HEX has, as well as the large pairing with USDC, which means that even if Ethereum stubs its toe one day, if HEX still has a lot of demand coming in from USDC swapped into HEX, you might still pump while Ethereum drops, even though there's some of that liquidity tied to Ethereum. So that is sort of the game that's being played. That there's a reason that markets don't go up forever.
What are your thoughts on my strategy of borrowing 100 grand against the house, right? And to go off, I think it was Mike, who was Jerry, Mike or something, who asked Like you said, hey, that strategy is not for me. Well, for me, it's like I'm going to borrow this $100,000. I'm either going to buy more real estate or I'm going to buy crypto. It's one of those two options. So I don't feel like buying more real estate as to add to the rentals. So I would rather just put that into crypto. Okay. Now, instead of just putting it all into HEX, what if I just, excluding our RV or whatever that protocol is called, what if it would just put 50,000 and 50,000 into LP pairs, maybe breaking it up into $10,000 lots or whatever, right? And so if
you'd want to you'd want the critical mass.
Okay,
if you were just saying like hex and p-hex or something, if you have other pairs in mind, then sure.
Okay, and then you earn 50% on that using the earnings. So scrape that every quarter or 6 months or whatever I'm comfortable with, and then using that to build out the hex bags into the future instead of, because the alternative, right? So you're like, what is going to generate larger bags into the future? Taking 80% of the bag, putting into hex now, putting that out into the future, using 20% to do the LP to pay off my loans, right?
Right.
Or using all of it towards LP, generating 50%, which is higher than 38%, right? Or 60%, right? Maybe I could do something like that. And that $50,000 that I'm earning, I can take that, minus, say 12 grand because of bringing it back over and paying the bill, right? So I can take, 40 something thousand dollars and just put that into hex bags and do that every, year or something.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that I do agree that considering ways that you may want to bucket or diversify how you deploy that 100,000 is probably important. I love hex, man. I love hex as much as anybody. But if you said, "Hey, I have $100,000. What's the play?" If someone walked up to you and said, "Put 100% of it into hex and stake it," slap the shit out of them, man. What are you talking about? Unless you have a crystal ball, you can't be giving advice like that. So I'm as bullish as anyone on hex, but I wasn't born yesterday, so I would like to have some safety stops in place, some things that are guaranteed, even if it's lower ROI. I'll trade off peace of mind and liquidity, accessibility, as opposed to, well, I'm just ride or die. Because what if you go into the best recession of all time and your money's locked up and you need liquid assets? Well, it's going to suck that you're looking at this 5-year, 7-year stake and going, oh, man, I can't do anything. Maybe I can get some Hedron. But what's Hedron going to be worth if you're in a bear market? It's a derivative play. It's a less liquid asset. It's probably going to be tanking harder. So you have to keep.
Do you see? So I see how stake and apes. Hopefully we're going to talk at some point later this week, and I want to understand more about. The art is cool and stuff, but it's not really my thing. But the smart contract underneath it is like, that's the gold piece of it from my point of view. But I want it to be changed. Like I want to see a different point of view on that.
Yeah.
I see a world potentially where individuals could just take their stake tax. You can't do anything into it, but just literally. So how you can do it with the wrapped HSI. So instead of doing wrapped HSI for your HEX taxes capital and then turning it into an NFT, you have to start that way natively, right? But what if you started with gohex.com or whatever, right? Go.hex.com or whatever, and you stake that way. I could see something where you are able to take your go.hex.com stake, put it into an NFT and sell the NFT, and there's a marketplace for those. Like, why wouldn't that be the thing too?
Yeah, I think there's something to do with the way that the hex is burned and the share receipt is distributed, that you would really be making an NFT, which I believe is actually an NFT when you look at the code, the shares that you get for creating a stake. So you'd really be creating like an NFT wrapping of an NFT that represents the shares that could become hex. I'm not sure if that's capable. I'm not sure if you can penetrate the code like that, because I just don't know enough about the development side of things. But let's say you could, right? Let's say that you could penetrate it and pull out that stake and have it wrapped up, or pull out those shares and have them wrapped up. Then yeah, as long as the code doesn't somehow only mint the hex back to the original staking address, if it's somehow new to carry it over to the new NFT holder address, then that would be a really cool tool.
So your hex stake is going to be tied to your address, right? And if
Yeah,
you
because it's your keys. That's
if you turn
that's how it
that
stays DeFi.
if you turn that into an NFT, when it becomes unstakeable, then who gets access? Well, maybe the certain smart contract could only give access to that, and it, like, you know, I'm not sure how that problem would be solved. It's definitely a very interesting problem, and I appreciate
Yeah.
your insights on that. Are
I've
you
thought about that too. I think that's why Hedron did it the way they did. I know that they wanted the optionability with regard to like instant liquidity, but I think that is also maybe an inherent security feature of Hex. I'm not sure though. I'll try to
um,
get some devs to answer that.
a question on this and a question on TOV, because I wanted to ask you about TOV first. Is the like logic up here for higher TOV tends to decrease risk, an appropriate framework to view the world by? General, on average,
Yes,
obviously there's
generally,
no.
we should almost say no on average because unfortunately there's more scams in crypto than there are like legitimate things. But if you're talking about pretty battle tested cryptos, then yeah, that's sound logic in my opinion.
Or protocols as in like Uniswap, a billion a day plus, right? That seems to be something that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of trust there, kind of thing. Okay, interesting, because that's how I was viewing pairs for earning yield or whatever.
Yeah, the only reason I said that is because, like, imagine the kind of people that play games with like unit bias and maybe they have like 13 zeros in there or something, and they artificially, or they have like a trillion coins and they artificially pump up the market cap. That market cap would translate into the total locked value in the liquidity pool in terms of like how much is that coin worth. So they could artificially make it look better than it is, and then you put yourself in there and get drained because it's some kind of a rug pull setup waiting for you. But when you're talking about like Ethereum and Hex and Bitcoin and stuff, that's not something you'd worry about.
Do you plan on doing any trading before the bridge is open?
No, not unless you guys are dumb. If you guys expose yourself and put really stupid ratios out there, I will help provide you with the assets you desire.
The Swordfish 009, by the way, GRC just mentioned how I can set up that little thing across the bottom for liking, commenting, and sharing this. I had no idea how to do that, so thank you, GRC. But the Swordfish 009, the best way to study this for economics is watch us. And I'm not just saying that for selfish reasons. Like, nobody else is talking about this.
There's no industry out there yet. That's why I changed the name to Crypto Curricula. Is I want to provide. I know that I trust me. You know, that's about as far as we can put our trust in this world most of the time. And so I know that I'm willing to dig deep and verify facts and learn from experts and share with experts. So I've taken it upon myself to slowly develop, and it'll probably be a summer project because I'm fucking slammed right now, if I'm being honest. But in the summer, I'm hoping to have a website where I can provide you with the basics of financial literacy for the legacy, and then we can talk about, because that's a good preface to understand the relationships of your money in crypto and to understand the markets and things like that. You'd be amazed. I know we've talked before about like technical analysis and being kind of like no one really makes money on it and stuff, but you'd be amazed at some of the things I have done to, because I think this is something you would like, Sam. We both agree that if everybody believes one thing, we maybe can find some value in something else, right? And so I think about that when it comes to technical analysis. I don't do technical analysis the way anybody else does it. I utilize some of the same indicators that they utilize, but I'm comparing those outcomes or those outputs to things I've taken my own time and structured my own way. Because I believe if everyone's acting on the same information, then you're just going to get yourself beat because you're going to be the last one to know about something one day. So I combine traditional analysis with my own custom proprietary blend of things that I view the world as.
Question on that.
Done well
do you track your trades like religiously?
Yeah.
And you're like, we could do it in a green room or something sometime, or if you care to, but you're like confident that you're very profitable doing the way strategy that you're utilizing?
Yeah, I've beaten the market every year since I started managing my own money.
What is the reference point when you say market?
S&P 500.
Well, no, I mean, I agree. I agree, but we're talking crypto versus S&P, right?
No. I don't trade in crypto. I don't trade in crypto the way I do in legacy. I'm much more of a hodler in crypto.
Okay.
That's when I say like I'm a net buyer. But I do use those same tools, but I'm not nearly as like confident. I guess you could say, or like I'm not as religious about believing in them because in legacy, all the things that make it highly manipulated, all the things that make it difficult for other people to use, are things I'm considering and utilizing to my advantage in the analysis. But in crypto, without all those middlemen and without kind of the symbiotic institutional elevation and dropping of the tide, there's it's just the volatility is so much faster that an indicator, any kind of lagging indicator in crypto, could really break you. It could bust you up pretty bad. So I do like to look at it, but it's more so like I'm looking at 6 month, data and just going like, interesting. It's up a little bit in the indicator, and like a year or 2 years of data, and I'm not making day trades on it. I use crypto.
These are like very long swing trades.
Super, and that's what. So if you look in some of my screenshots, you'll see I call it like the Orca long market MACD or like custom long market MACD, and it's an adjustment to the MACD indicator that sort of says like I don't really give a shit about day to day, week to week, month to month. I want to know if we're in a bull market or a bear market.
Do you use volatility indicators? Do you use volatility like Bollinger Bands or anything?
Not really.
No.
The Bollinger Bands are I've used them. I just don't care for them. I think they, unfortunately, because I haven't done a lot of time like nitpicking and customizing with them, I think they're just beautiful pictures. And a lot of people have agreed that they want to look at that picture, so I don't find as much value in it. I'd rather go paint my own picture and try to see if it provides value.
Yes, yeah, I completely agree. I was like there was like the first year I started tracking stuff for trading options, I was like 300-something%, and like the S&P was like 21% or something. I don't remember. It was in the 20s. And it was like
so like I called out the short on the S&P 500 I think on like January 4th or 5th. I don't know, whichever market day was in play. It's been in profit ever since.
And I still think that we like definitely don't trade. Like that's if you want to be a complete degenerate and you want to borrow like fiat and then put that into crypto, I personally think that's a strategy that a lot of people can pull off. If you want to like close your 401k out and put it into crypto, I think that's an intelligent. I'm not saying anybody should do any of these things, but I think that's an intelligent idea. I think closing out an IRA and putting that into crypto, that's an intelligent idea. All those are far more intelligent ideas, in my opinion, than trading in crypto.
See, I do like very money I wouldn't even notice if I lost it. But I just do it for the percentage return because then that gives me like feedback on, hey, is the crazy picture math working or not? And it's just more fun. And it's just something that kind of keeps me engaged. And like I consume all of these narratives and macroeconomic variables. And so it's easy if you have a little money on the table that's in the game, it's easier to kind of track like the correlation between what you heard and what happened and what you think is going to happen based on your magic TA and what actually happens. So I just use it more for that. It gives me sometimes you will notice a serious divergence between what they're telling you on the teletube and what's really happening in the price charts. So those are times where you got to maybe look at, something's happening or about to happen.
I want to give you another data point. It's not really probably going to be useful for the legacy side of things, but it is like a bets type of framework that's used. You can't use it in the US, or I think you have to use a VPN to use it or whatever, but it's called Poly Market, right? And they have these cool bets, and then you get to see the volume of resources that are put behind it, right? When will Ethereum merge to proof of stake, right? And so they have, like, you can click on these things, and then there's all this data behind it, like, and it's cool. Like, I just find it fascinating because you get to see, like, there's not that these are like gigantic pools. Remember, this is 700 pools, right? But these are like people like me and shit like that, right? And then they have the dates here, and you have people betting on them. So it's a one more place that you can just gather data to like see, this is what the market of, as in, this is a small amount of volume here, $5,000. There's people, right? But there's a lot of this is $100,000, but this might be made up of 2,600 people, right? Not that that's a tremendously large sample size, but it's more than me just asking you your fucking opinion, right? You know what I mean? It's just it's a cool thing to
sentiment data, right?
Yes, exactly.
And it took money. It wasn't just click a button. It took money to actually get your sentiment recorded. That's probably a healthy barrier.
Yeah, and there's like sometimes you see some goofy shit in here, like I don't know. It's a fun site to check out.
It's like the DraftKings of crypto. It's like the of crypto.
Anybody check it out or use it, let me know. This has been awesome, Orca. This has been helpful for me. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Like I think we should continue doing this on a fairly regular basis. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. And I think Matic had mentioned he had some questions too. So next time, maybe next week, if you're down for it next week, we can do another episode. And Matic, if you want to come on for a little while and just ask questions and be part of the conversation, love to have you on, or anybody else who has thoughts or perspectives, or Boss isn't here anymore, I'm sure, but if he wants to come on and just ask all the noob questions, feel free. That'll be dope. What do you want to show real quick? Go ahead and show whatever you want to show.
Yeah, so I don't really have too much to shill. I am working on right now, and I'd like to get people's opinions on how they feel about. I have been approached at least 100 times in the last 5 days about, hey, do you know about this project on Pulsechain? Hey, do you know if this is a trustworthy project? Hey, am I going to get rugged? And I have some connections in the community. Like even Brock Pearson is working with Rug Pull Finder, who's a company that specializes in discovering audits of NFT projects and things like that. So I thought maybe our community would have interest in a service that would be free to the community, but where development teams could have their projects sort of audited and KYC'd and even private KYC'd, but just verify that the development teams have been doxxed, no criminal backgrounds in finance and things like that. And then to put together sort of a HUD to provide the simple statistics, the kind of hexagon rubric of like, does it have admin keys? Do we know who made the project? What are the liquidity structures and things like that? And so when you
do that,
putting it together.
I've had that same thought this week. If I could help, or we can hash it out online, or whatever the case is. Like using that framework, I was like, what framework can you create? Admin keys, not giving up your private keys, and maybe is there an audit or 2 or 3 other things that are like important, but not as important as those first 2 things as metrics in terms of like the gauge of the risk. I think that would be a tremendous value. Like, if you do that, or if you want to do something together,
it's still, it's in the baby steps still, but working with a person who has a career in economic professional underwriting, there's a lot that we can do that's not on the development side. But looking at, I have to go on Matic. We'll chat soon. No, you're good. And we'll see. I would really love to make it like a kind of an open source thing where John McVoy in our community is huge with the DevCon community, which is like hackers. So some people might not have the $30,000 for a CertIC audit or whatever it costs these days. But what if you have a bunch of hungry young hackers who would be willing to try and break your code for you, and you could find some discounted price to have that done? And then so we say, hey, they didn't have security audits, that'll still be on your thing, but they have like the DevCon hacker pass where nobody at the hacker pass was able to knowingly break it. So maybe that's an extra level of quality in the scorecards.
It'd probably be higher quality over time, right? If you can have a team of people who are actually curious about breaking shit through and showing the world who they are, in terms of like, I found that hack, right, type of thing, and that's a tremendous value to me because then I get the attention and off of that. Like, I bet that would be far more valuable over time if that's how audits were actually structured.
Right. So I thought maybe that would be something, and we'll have to look at it. But yeah, other than that, I'm crypto curricula on Twitter and YouTube these days with the same gross beard. So that's really all I have to show.
Sweet. Looking forward to all the stuff working on, and looking forward to learning more stuff. If you guys want to catch more of what I have to offer, you can check me on Twitter. There's a link down below. You can check on the other YouTube channel. If you like weird fucking strange fitness stuff, about sex or about building muscle or getting tan with the peptide or healing your body way faster than everybody else, like Wolverine and all that kind of stuff, you can check out that. That's also linked down below. If you want to support the channel, first of all, your time here is the most important thing, so thank you. But if you want to support in other ways, there's links down below. Appreciate you guys. Orca, I'm out of here.
Peace,
Great
brother.
chat with you. Peace out.
You bet.
Thank you, everybody.